Hey, it's Conrad Thompson, and you're listening to Something to Wrestle with Bruce Prichard. And, man, you guys are getting a lot of wrestling this week. Let's go ahead and put a bow on last week's episode. Bruce Owen Hart, the King of Hearts, one of our most requested episodes. And I got really, really positive feedback from this show. A little bit of controversial decision-making by us, according to some, that we didn't talk about the end of Owen's life, but I thought it was a fitting tribute. Let's talk about all the good stuff. And I feel like we did a pretty good job of that. What did you think?
I choose to only remember the good stuff and don't really want to go back and rehash and talk about personal things that I wasn't a part of. And Owen Hart was somebody that I loved and adored when he was with us, and got nothing bad to say about the man. So I didn't choose to go back and rehash a bunch of negative stuff and things that's been covered by a lot of folks over the years. And that's that.
Lots of comments on Twitter about, I guess it was something that was done on house shows where they teased that Owen had beaten Brett and won the world title. So there's a couple of pictures out there floating of Owen carrying the winged eagle. Was there ever any serious consideration in 94 of putting the belt on Owen?
There was talk about it. We talked about what if scenarios with Owen and Brett during that summer, because the match at WrestleMania 10 had been so good that we thought, hey, what if? Is this something we could do? But didn't get past that.
Ultimately, why didn't Vince pull the trigger on that, do you think?
I just think other things came along, and other things that he felt would be bigger and more box office.
We did get an email from Smith Hart, a member of the Hart family, and he did have a correction. Maybe you need to go ahead and acknowledge.
Yeah, I guess I inadvertently had said on the podcast last week that it was Keith Hart that had passed, when in fact it was Dean Hart. And that was just a Freudian slip on my part. Didn't realize I did it. And I do know that, unfortunately, it was Dean that passed, and that was who I was referencing when talking about Owen and whatever you asked me about at WrestleMania, Owen's first ever WrestleMania. So that was that, and Smith was kind enough to reach out to us and correct me, and it's ironic that the only person that brought that to our attention was Smith Hart. So thank you for that, Smith. I appreciate you clarifying that, and that was my mistake. That was my bad, and just a Freudian slip that I didn't even realize I said.
And you sound a lot better this week. Kudos to you for soldiering through last week. I know it wasn't the easiest show to get through. I
was doing the whole thing. I was trying, one of the
lots of tweets about this.
Well, yeah, everybody wanted me to do more Johnny Ace, so I thought a whole show of Johnny Ace.
Well, we're gonna have you do a whole show of Jim Cornette here in just a minute. We took a pass last week on talking about all of the Hart family infighting and situations and craziness that existed after Owen's life, but Smith Hart did send us a note, so I'm going to share that with everyone here. Much was made about Owen not enjoying wrestling. The fact is, Owen loved wrestling. He loved everything about wrestling. Unfortunately, his wife Martha hated wrestling from the day they met. So he always downplayed his love of wrestling to her and always told her it was just a job to make money to keep her happy. Subsequently, it should be noted that no one in my family has ever seen or heard from Martha since Owen's funeral. My parents never even saw their grandchildren afterwards until the day they died. So we said we weren't going to get into this, but since we did hear it directly from a family member, I thought I should just pass that information along. Take it for what you will. We certainly appreciate Smith Hart listening to the show and then reaching out to go ahead and offer some footnotes for last week's Owen Hart episode, which is available in the archives now. Of course, we're not going to comment on anything Martha related. And to be clear, we did get some rumor and innuendo that we didn't talk about the end of Owen's life last week because you were under some sort of legal obligation not to say anything in regards to that. Go ahead and clarify that.
No, absolutely not. It's just something that I don't choose to discuss. I don't feel that it's appropriate, and it is something that I was there for. I lived it. I don't want to relive it. And it was a horrible, horrible experience. And you know what? I will say this. Fuck you. to the people that it's like, well, tell us about the worst moments of your life. I've shared some things, some very personal things on this show, and it's not easy, and it's difficult sometimes to share that stuff, and it infuriates the hell out of me at times when we are public figures. We are out here in the public. We put ourselves out here. So I'm open to all your criticism, whatever it is that you want to say about me or anything else. However, at the same time, I am entitled to my feelings and my private thoughts. And if there's something I don't want to share, then, hey, at least give me the respect of, I'm saying I don't want to share it, so I'm not going to share it. It was a horrible, horrible, horrible experience that I lived. And if for those of you who have lost someone very near and dear to you, imagine it taking place in front of your very eyes, and then trying to share that on a national stage.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people really realize this, so it is worth mentioning here, and I know you're not gonna, but I'll just say it. A lot of people say, oh, well, you talked about Kurt Hennig passing away, or Brian Pillman passing away, or Rick Rude, and the rumor and innuendo. Okay, I hear you on that. Bruce was ringside when his friend passed away. He's right there. So there's lots of criticism about why we won't do this and why we won't do that. We're not under a legal obligation. Bruce, do you work for WWE?
Nope.
Did you have to sign some sort of gag order about this situation?
Nope.
So none of that exists. This is all make-believe fantasy land. And when we're just giving you, man, the gun blue truth, fucking take it or leave it. But there it is. The reality is a man lost a person who was really close to him in front of him, 18 inches from him. And now you want us to just sell it? We're not going to do that. We want to have fun on this show. This is a show where we try to get hashtag Kamala's penis trending. That's kind of what we're trying to do. Now, along the way, we'll tell you some real stuff, but if something's too real, and Bruce has never said, hey man, that's too real, I don't want to do that one, until now. We got to give him that. We talk about when he's fired. No problem. Not just the first time, but the second time. We talk about when other friends in his life have passed away. That happened in a hotel room. That happened at their house. It didn't happen within arm's reach. It's different. Give him that. All right, Bruce, let's have some fun. Let's talk about what is going to be, in my opinion, one of our very most fun shows we've ever done. Oh yeah. Hashtag it's Miller time. It's the Jim Cornette episode here on Something to Wrestle with Bruce Prichard. And, I'm fired up about it, man. Goddamn.
You're dead in a plate full of piss, motherfucker.
So let's talk about Jim Cornette. Are we done plugging all of our gimmicks now?
Did we say BrucePrichard.com? We'll work that in later.
Gosh.
What?
Thank you. Let's not overdose on it. Goodness gracious. Jim Cornette.
James E. His middle name is not E, or doesn't start with an E, I don't believe.
Well, is your last name Love?
Maybe.
Is your first name Brother?
Could be.
What's your middle name?
I don't know.
Motherfucking.
All right.
So Jim Cornette, one of our MLW brethren here, fellow podcaster, manager extraordinaire, promoter, man, he's done everything in the business. And I don't know that we're going to be able to cover his whole career in a timely fashion here. So I think what we might do is get a little bit off the beaten path. And man, let's just have some fun today. Let's just tell some stories. Let's just enjoy a little Miller time. It's my understanding that Cornette broke in the Continental Territory. Would have been when you met him, and roughly when would that have been? Early 80s sometime?
I met Corny, I believe, in Memphis, Tennessee, or Nashville, Tennessee. I don't really remember. Well, it may have even been fucking Louisville, Kentucky, for all I know. But I remember visiting my brother Tom during one of his stints in Tennessee, probably in 82. I think was the time frame, and met Jim, but it was just kind of a, hey, how you doing? And that was about it. And Jim took pictures and was just starting out on his managerial career. But the next time that I saw Jim was 1983 in Houston, Texas, when he came to work for Mid-South Sports and the big cowboy Bill Watts. So it was, we became friends then at that time.
So Jim got in the business really, really early, like 2021, something like that.
Well, Jim had always been around the business. His mom always took him to the matches, and Jim took pictures at ringside, and he always hung around the back, and he was kind of like me in that way, in that he wrote the programs, he took the pictures for the programs, and he was that kid that was into everything, absolutely lived and breathed and loved the wrestling business.
And there's actually pictures out there of him as a photographer. So another photographer is taking pictures of matches, and you see a young Jim Cornette there,
focusing his camera.
Yeah, who probably barely has a driver's license, taking pictures. But I think he made his managerial debut or his ringside debut, as far as on camera, in September of '82, managing Sherry Martel. Does that sound right?
Well, I don't know. He may have. I remember the first guys that Jim managed was like Frank Morrell, and he had the Assassins, and who the hell else? It was part of him, and Jimmy Hart had a stable in Memphis, Tennessee, and it was the most god awful motley crew,
ragtag bunch.
Oh God, it was absolutely horrible. And I remember the first time seeing Jimmy was he wore like a sailor's cap, like a captain's of a yacht.
Yeah.
Cap, and he had the damn tennis racket, and he looked just like a spoiled, rotten mama's boy.
Which was his gimmick of the rich kid who
that wasn't a gimmick. That was a shoot.
So he was a rich kid turned inept manager?
Yes.
Okay.
Damn right.
So wow, art and imitating life.
I tell you, man, Jimmy really, folks, for those of you that don't know, and I can already hear my phone ringing. Goddamn motherfucker! You got this wrong. You got that wrong. I'll kill you for this. Jim's dad was like a big time hoity-toity newspaper publisher in Louisville, Kentucky. In the days when the guy that ran the newspaper was more powerful,
he controlled the information for the town.
You damn right.
Yeah,
he was the shit.
Right.
And his dad was a very, very powerful man and very politically connected. And Jim lost his dad at an early age and was raised by his mom. But his dad was well-to-do and big time. And Jimmy wasn't hurting for extra spoonful of porridge as he was growing up. Spoonful of porridge, Mom.
I think he's still probably doing okay up at Castle Cornette. So as we say, he starts with this gimmick of the spoiled rich kid, and one of the early things they do is, his clients start firing him very early on, like after their first match, and that's kind of the routine. And then eventually they move to Mid-South Wrestling, and that's when he starts to strike fire working with Bill Watts. What interaction did you have with him in Watts territory?
Well, when Jim came in, he obviously came in with the Midnight Express, and it was the first time that I got to be around Jim at length, and we just became friendly at that point in time. We were about the same age and shared the same love of the business, but it was somebody that Cornette could talk to about the business that was on, the business end of things. But Corny came in, and man, he set the territory on fire. He was different. He was unlike anything that anyone had ever seen before. You had your stereotypical managers that you grew up in the business with, like J.J. Dillon and Gary Hart, J.C. Dyke, Saul Weingroff, older guys, sometimes retired wrestlers who became managers to maintain their presence in the business. Now here's this young kid who's coming in that never wrestled, and what the hell's he doing here? But that could generate heat.
Yeah.
Better than any of the old timers. And he did it by just running his mouth.
Bill Watts, in his own words, once talked about the young Jim Cornette by saying, he was so obnoxious, I wanted to slap him. I knew he was instant box office if he could get me that riled up. So if you can get the cowboy fired up as much wrestling as he'd been around, you're probably on to something.
Oh, well, fuck, then I was box office because I could ride the fucking cowboy.
He had a pretty good run, kid. I'm just saying.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt.
There's rumor and innuendo out there that he being Cornette, pronouns pal, actually winds up in Mid-South because he visited a television taping in Memphis with Lawler and Jerry Jarrett. And Jarrett suggested they do a talent trade. So the Express Gang and Cornette wind up in Mid-South as a part of that talent trade. Is that the way you remember that going down?
Well, the trade was Bill Dundee. I don't know. It was a bit of a talent trade, but it was also Bill Dundee coming in to book Mid-South. And Dundee was taking a lot of the cast-off talent from the Tennessee territory. And Cornette happened to be right there, and it's like, okay, hey, can you do something with him? And Midnight Express was born.
And at the time, Memphis probably couldn't afford to live without Jimmy Hart, who was probably the top heel manager in that territory at the time, just based on seniority, right?
Yeah, Jimmy was entrenched in Memphis, so Jimmy wasn't going anywhere.
It's not like
that point in his career.
So let's talk about the racket, because that is really synonymous with Jim Cornette. And when the entire time I've been watching wrestling, that's been synonymous with him. And I'm curious if you know any, I'm sure we've got fun racket stories, but do you recall ever having a conversation with him about how that came about? Was it just viewed as highfalutin for Southern wrestling fans that someone played tennis and was the rich kid at the country club, and that's the reason he wore the yachting hat and the tennis racket?
The way I remember it was Cornette had seen a movie or something of a rich kid that had a badminton racket and always carried this badminton racket around. And the stereotype of, Biff and Muffy at the tennis court was synonymous with that rich, snobby kid. So to be different, nobody had a tennis racket. You had guys that had canes, and Jimmy Hart had his megaphone, and you had even people that had golf clubs and shit, and it was just something to be different. No one had a tennis racket.
Yeah.
So Corny used a tennis racket.
Well, I'm sure it came in handy, with all the riots he would incite with those aggressive fans.
Goddamn, I put my lucky horseshoe in there, strap that motherfucker in, which is a shoot, by the way.
He would put a horseshoe in there?
Oh, goddamn right he would.
So if he did have to use it, it was going to fucking hurt.
Yes. He'd swing that sumbitch. He swung for the fences.
That's amazing.
I'll fuck somebody up. Come at me, motherfucker. Goddamn hillbilly. This hillbilly calling another hillbilly a hillbilly. What the fuck? Can you imagine another southerner dissing a goddamn southerner?
You do that to me every week on this show.
Shut up, hillbilly.
Okay. All right, we got to take a time out right now because I'm excited that football season is back. But what's the best part of football season? Well, checking out the post-game stats. Which wideouts had more than 2 touchdowns? Which quarterbacks threw for less than 350 yards? You think you can pick who will do what before kickoff? Then you got to play Pick 6 from DraftKings, an official daily fantasy partner of the NFL. Just download the DraftKings Pick 6 app, select between 2 and 6 players, and choose if they'll have more or less of a stat. It's that simple. And for all the first-time Pick 6 players, check this out. New customers play $5 on your first pick set, and you get $50 in Pick 6 credits. So download the new DraftKings Pick 6 app now and use our code STW. That's code STW for new customers to play $5 on your first pick set and get $50 in Pick 6 credits. Available only on DraftKings. Pick 6. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org in Connecticut. Must be 18 plus. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Pick 6 not available everywhere, including New York and Ontario. Void where prohibited. 1 per new customer. Non-withdrawal. Pick 6 credits expire in 6 months. Limited time offer. See terms at pick6.draftkings.com/promos. The schedule of the Mid-South Territory was brutal, and everybody knows that it was brutal, but How about this? At one point, Cornette worked 103 days straight before being ordered by the doctors to take a break and do some bed rest.
Pussy.
I knew you were going to say that. According to Cornette, he offers the following example, quote, 2 weeks of our lives, 14 days. We did 2 one-hour TV shows, 15 house shows, 2 all-day promo sets, drove 4,700 miles in a car while doing that. And I can't speak for anybody else, but I was only 22 years old and just pleased as punch to be there, $5,600 for 2 weeks in 1984. Not bad.
Yeah, that ain't bad, Jack.
So the miles and the money in the old wrestling cliche is all that matters. And obviously he was a top act very early in his life. And it's important for us to mention here that he's doing this in 84. He was born in 61. The dude's 23 years old, living his wrestling dream, making $5,600 for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
It's a pretty fun
good.
deal.
Pretty good.
Pretty fun deal. Let's talk about Mid-South before we jump out of Mid-South. I've heard that there is a fun story that you want to share with everybody about a match with Hacksaw Duggan and Hercules Hernandez.
Oh, Jesus Christ, man. You know, everybody talks about what a genius Bill Watts was and how great of a promoter he was and this mind and shit. He's the only son of a bitch I know that would book a hair match in 2 towns in the same week with the same guys involved, with the same finish. So they had worked up this program with Hercules Hernandez and Hacksaw Jim Duggan, where Herc had been the bodyguard of Jim Cornette. The match stipulation was that if Herc won, then Duggan would have to get his head shaved. And if Duggan won, Cornette would have to get his head shaved. Well, the big town on the loop was a Sunday show in Houston where they had this match where the loser of the match would get their head shaved. Either Cornette gets his head shaved or Duggan gets his head shaved. And, Duggan was red hot and Corny was the top heel. So, obviously, Corny was going to get his head shaved. And I'm sitting at the office on maybe Thursday, and Cornette calls me, and he's talking to me about blah, 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 we're doing this. And, God damn, and they shaved my head last night in New Orleans. I said, what? We did the hair match, shaved my head in New Orleans. How the fuck you do that? We got the hair match in Houston. They had the match, and again, this is how fucked up the finish was the match, Herc actually won and beat Duggan, so Duggan should have gotten his head shaved. Instead, they send all the baby faces down, and they jump Cornette, and they hold Cornette down, and they go to shave his head. But the clippers don't work, so they send out, and the boys come down with disposable Bic shaving.
Oh, my
shavers.
gosh.
And they actually, now Cornette had agreed to just the buzz cut. But since the clippers don't work, they don't have scissors, they don't have anything, they shave his head with Bic razors. Which is great for New Orleans and the fucking 200 people they drew there. They did drew a little more than 200 people, but it wasn't as big as Houston was going to be on Sunday.
Right.
So now we've got our heel manager that they're paying money, which we were sold out on that Sunday. They're paying money to see Cornette get his head shaved, but he's already gotten his head shaved in New Orleans. So they get some Yahoo Jim Jameson from Memphis, Tennessee, and bring him in as Cornette's cousin. And the stipulation is that if that Jim Duggan already shaved Cornette's head earlier this week, but by God, we're going to humiliate his whole family, family member by family member. And if Cornette loses, we're taking this mask. And Cornette comes out in a mask and doesn't want to take the mask off. But we're going to take the mask off of him and shave his cousin's head, and gave Jim $500 to shave his head. The Jim Jameson guy. But it was a debacle. And Watts sends us the tape from New Orleans. Cornette getting his head shaved, wants us to play it on Saturday night while we're promoting Sunday. Cornette possibly getting his head shaved. I just thought it was absolutely asinine. Motherfucker.
So, not too long after being here and setting the territory on fire, they decide, hey, you know what? Let's try the big city living and maybe get off the road a little bit. This Mid-South travel is brutal. So they try their hand in Dallas, working world class. Obviously a bigger city, but also a pretty easy travel schedule comparatively. But then again, everything was easy compared to Mid-South. And where they were feuding with the Rock and Roll Express in Mid-South, here in world class, they're feuding with the Fantastics. So again, another really badass tag team. If you're not really familiar with the Fantastics, I would encourage you to go out of your way to watch some Bobby Fulton and Tommy Rogers matches that they had with the Midnight Express. Two of the more underrated performers, especially as a tag team. Wouldn't you agree, Bruce?
Yeah, they were great together. The only negative with the Fantastics was that usually they had to follow the Rock and Roll Express.
Yeah.
And were immediately compared to them.
Sure.
Had the roles been reversed,
history could have been different.
Yeah, Rock and Roll would have been compared to the Fantastics. And I thought both teams really held their own. But again, whoever's first, that's who steals the heart of the fan.
And then, of course, eventually, they start to look for other opportunities because, everybody does in world class, especially if you can't get going significant business with the Von Erichs, because the Von Erichs were consistently programmed on top. Do I have that right?
Yeah, they were, but also the fact that the Fantastics were a young babyface team, they were different than the Von Erichs, so they were able to kind of get their niche in there. And the Midnight Express, they were a different team, man. And they came in with Cornette, adding Cornette to that mix, made them different, made them unique, and made them a great attraction.
Well, life behind the scenes became a little different during Jim's time in world class because he made the decision to go ahead and get married. So chat me up. What can you tell us about Jim Cornette's first wedding? I feel like there's a good story in here somewhere.
Well, Cornette finished up in Dallas, and he went on to WCW in Charlotte. But his first wife was from Dallas, and he had met her in WCCW. So the wedding was going to take place in Dallas, and I flew in for the wedding. It was a nice little cozy affair, but the dubious honor of walking Mrs. Cornette, the real Mrs. Cornette, Jim's mom, I got to walk her down the aisle and place her in her seat before the wedding, and what a beautiful day that was. Evening.
So, okay, that's a cool story, bro. That's not really what I wanted to know about. If Jim Cornette got married,
yeah,
then the night before or sometime prior to that wedding, there was probably a bachelor party.
There was.
And if Jim Cornette has a bachelor party and Bruce Prichard's there, some shit went down.
Well, let me tell you, and right about now, Jim Cornette's asshole is puckered so tight in Louisville, Kentucky, as he's listening to this. You know what Jim Cornette's bachelor party consisted of?
What's that?
Bunch of guys. I met Mark Hildebrand there, who's the
phenomenal referee.
Great referee, great guy. Wonderful guy. One of Corny's best friends and became a friend of mine. Great guy. Got to meet Mark there. That was cool. Norman Dooley, I think that was his name. Norm Dooley. But it's a bachelor party.
Sure.
You know what we did? We all gathered.
Whoa. Let me guess. We haven't talked about this.
Yeah.
I'm going to guess two things.
Yeah.
You watched videotape or Betamax or whatever it was of wrestling and pornography.
No porn.
It was all wrestling.
Yeah. It was like 5 or 6 guys in a hotel room. Hey, goddamn, wait till you see this match. And these motherfuckers sat around and watched wrestling. And nobody drank.
And you were in the corner smoking dope by yourself?
I finally excused myself, and yeah. I did. I did go back to my room to inhale.
Of course.
And find beer. And
So no drugs, no alcohol,
No drugs,
no
no
women.
alcohol, no way. Yeah, I was just watching wrestling.
Wait. Cornette didn't have some chicken chain somewhere?
I'm not saying it has some chicken chain somewhere.
But
I'm
not
just
there.
saying,
Not there.
Yeah, no, it was watching wrestling tapes.
That's disappointing.
Yeah, well.
All right, folks, we got to talk about your grooming routine. And I got a little pro tip for you. You want a one and done? How about the beard and balls bundle? It's got the lawnmower 5.0 and the beard hedger. Buddy, I don't think I'll ever get over the ball. The beard and balls bundle might be the greatest name for a product in the history of Something to Wrestle. Like, we're going to have to start using that as color commentary in matches where one guy who has a beard headbutts another guy in his no-no area. I'm going to need Joe Tessitore sometime soon to call that the beard. Oh, Corey Graves, he hit him with the beard and balls bundle. Dude, this is the real deal. Manscaped is a great product, and they really have figured out how to take care of you head to toe. Why don't you go use our promo code right now, STW at manscaped.com. We're going to get you 20% off plus free shipping. It's a premium grooming experience. It's not a gag gift. It is a great gag gift. But the real gag is on them when they realize, hey, dude, this thing's legit. I can't tell you how many people I've gifted Manscaped to at like a Dirty Santa setting or something like that. It's always a hit every time. But like whoever, quote unquote, winds up with the gift, they come into my office like in the next month or so and they shut the door and they look around as if anybody's going to walk in on us and they say, hey, man, that Manscaped was the real deal. You damn right it is. We've all had we might call it a CSI Alabama moment before when you're trying to take care of what's going on downstairs. But your ball's best friend is now the Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra. It's going to cut through the bushiest of bushes effortlessly while being gentle on the skin and your delicate places. Like, can you imagine the visual of trying to shear down Dutch Mantel? Well, that's what we need to do. Hey, Dutch does a podcast. Maybe we'll get him over here and show you guys what this thing can do. I mean, I think we all know he's got, what does Tony Schiavone call it? A Navajo rug on his back? Yeah. Hey, how about the two interchangeable skin-safe blade heads? You can choose between a precision trim or a smooth finish. Did I mention it's waterproof? It's so waterproof that Dave Silva actually shaves his asshole right in the shower and stomps all those brittle asshole hairs right down the drain. They're gone forever. It makes cleanup a breeze. What about the beard hedger? If you're going for neat stubble or a full-on lumberjack look, this trimmer has you covered. It's got a titanium-coated stainless steel T-blade and 20 different length options. 20. That's right, 20. And just like the lawnmower, the beard hedger is also waterproof. So you can do it in the shower if you want. You don't have to worry about water damage. It's got a 60-minute runtime on the battery, so that'll get you a ton of trimming. And if you can't trim your beard in 60 minutes, you need to call for backup. Something's going on. What I really like is they've upgraded. They've got an LED charge indicator, so it's not like you're going to think you've got your thing charged and ready to roll, but then you go to turn it on and it's just dead. You'll know ahead of time when you finish, hey, do I need to put this on the charge for next time? Don't be that guy. The Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra always makes sure that you're looking your best down yonder, and the Beard Hedger Pro takes care of everything else. Get 20% off and free shipping. It's the Beard and Balls Bundle at manscaped.com when you use our promo code STW. The Beard and Balls, Beard and Balls, Beard and Balls. You know you want some beard and balls. Get 20% off plus free shipping with the code STW at manscaped.com. No more juggling multiple tools or dealing with subpar results. Just efficient, effective grooming wherever you need it. Smooth face and slippery when wet balls. Thanks to the Beard and Balls Bundle. Use the promo code STW at manscaped.com.
Wait a minute. You're disappointed?
Yeah.
I flew in for it.
Man, I was really fired up about this bachelor party story.
Oh, man.
I thought there'd be a fucking donkey, midgets, balloons, candles.
There probably was.
Ping pong balls.
There probably was, but that was probably at the
anal ring toss.
Maybe that might have been at the bachelorette party.
I thought he'd like put a chick in a kiddie pool and coat her in mayonnaise and then throw lunch meat at her and try to get it to stick.
Where do you come up with this shit, Conrad?
Nothing like.
I've never heard anything like that. I mean, are you talking Oscar Mayer?
No, dude, something real classy, something real nice. Boar's head.
Oh, okay. Well, okay.
You know.
My kids listen to this.
Well, they're getting an education about their dad. Just saying. So as you mentioned, he does make his way, he being Jim Cornette, pronouns pal, over to Jim Crockett Promotions in Charlotte. They have a very successful run, as everyone is familiar. Do a series of matches again with the Midnight Express, work with everybody.
The Midnight Express had a run with the Midnight Express?
Motherfucker, yes.
Okay, don't get hot.
You don't know.
They worked with the goddamn Rock and Roll Express.
And they worked with the Midnight Express.
Okay, never mind.
Paul Heyman had the new Midnight Express.
No, he had the real Midnight Express.
Okay, you know what I'm talking about.
Okay.
All right. Anyway.
I knew I had something to clarify.
Stan Lane comes into the group. Dennis Condrey goes home, etc., etc. Either way, the concept is Cornette is big box office everywhere he goes, has a pretty good run there, and then ultimately decides to leave not too long after Halloween Havoc 1990. But before then, he gets a taste of kind of the behind the scenes aspect of the business. He joined the booking committee and the creative team for WCW. Once Jim Crockett is bought out, Turner buys in 89 sometime, I believe. That's when he started to have a hand in starting to format some of the television, help write the storylines, things like that. And obviously he's a good guy to do that, since he's one of the only managers in the business at that time to incite fucking riots and need police escorts to and from the ring. That'd be fair to say?
Yeah, it is. But also when you talk about the creative end of the business and the detail that goes into booking and the detail that goes into writing television, Corny is anal about details, and Corny is anal about keeping notes, and he kept notes of every house and every payoff and every finish. He wrote down all the finishes every night of all their matches, and if there was a creative finish that Bill Dundee did with someone else, he would write that down, and he just kept meticulous notes. So to put Cornette on a creative team, pure genius, because he had not only his own warped mind full of creative ideas, he stole from the best, and he studied the best and wrote everything down and documented all that shit.
He has a falling out with Ole Anderson, he being Jim Cornette.
Thank you, pronouns pal. God damn it.
Has fallen out with Ole Anderson. Jim Herd is in control. Ultimately, they try to get him to come back. He says, fuck that, I'm sitting it out. And he does. And he sits out the end of his contract rather than come back. He's just not pleased with the way the Midnights have been booked or presented. So he just sits it out. He and Stan Lane leave. Bobby Eaton stays on. We all kind of know what happens from there. He decides, you know what? I believe in old school territorial wrestling enough. I'm going to put my money where my mouth is. I'm going to start my own territory. Smoky Mountain Wrestling was born in 1991. They promoted shows in Tennessee, Kentucky, West Virginia, Georgia, and the Carolinas. And that's probably one of his most enjoyable times in the business. Now, I'm sure it's very stressful to be involved in that, but he certainly had a good time doing it. Wouldn't you agree?
I think he did. I think that it was a passion project, and he had a lot of help from Rick Rubin. I
don't think a lot of people know that. Share that story.
Well, Rick Rubin, who is a legendary music producer, and at the time, the hot act that Rubin had discovered and was really pushing with Black Crowes. But Rubin invested some money and helped Corny out to get the damn thing started, and did a few cross-promotion things with Black Crowes and Smoky Mountain Wrestling. But he helped out there a little bit. But it was a passion project, and was something that Cornette had always dreamed of doing. And he actually did it, man. He started his own territory, ran his own damn territory the way he wanted, the way wrestling used to be, and the way we like it. God damn.
It's worth mentioning when you say Rick Rubin, a lot of casual wrestling fans may not really know who that is, but he's a former co-president of Columbia Records, and along with Russell Simmons, founded Def Jam Records. So if you've ever heard of guys like, I don't know, Beastie Boys, LL Cool J, Public Enemy, Run DMC, he was a big part of their career. Maybe little bands like Metallica, Black Sabbath, AC/DC, guys like Mick Jagger, Jay-Z, people you might have heard of. Rick Rubin was a big wrestling fan and had a lot of confidence in Jim Cornette. So quite the nod.
And one of the nicest guys you'd ever want to meet. And he, to me, you know what I loved Rick Rubin for? Was going out in the resurgence of Johnny Cash. So for all the kids out there that think that all Johnny Cash did was his later work, Hurt and all that stuff, that was Rick Rubin, and that was Rick Rubin bringing Johnny Cash back to the forefront in the year 2000.
And lots of guys that you're familiar with worked in Smoky Mountain. The Dirty White Boy, who wrestled in the WWF as
T.L. Hopper.
Boo Bradley, who worked in the WWF as
Santa Claus.
Or,
well, that's where we got him from Smoky Mountain for Santa Claus. Balls Mahoney.
Tracy Smothers, Mark Curtis, New Jack and Mustafa, Al Snow, Jerry Lawler was there, Eddie Gilbert, Johnny Gunn, who worked for you guys as
Sal Sincere,
Eddie Gilbert, Devin Storm, Dan Severin, Chris Candido, Primetime Brian Lee. There was a famous woman who we've covered on the show before. She got her start there. Her name was
Midnight, Mooney, Lucky, Bunny.
You gonna help me?
Lip, what? Sonny,
Bob Holly, Chris Jericho, Lance Storm, D'Lo Brown.
Here's it. Hey, I'm gonna give you a good one. This was corny when Jericho and Lance Storm came in, and I asked him about the Thrill Seekers, and he says, I don't know, goddamn Lance Storm might have it, but that fucking Jericho, I don't know if he'll ever make it.
Is that real?
Yeah,
that's awesome.
He loved them both and thought they both had it, but he just would get frustrated with Chris sometimes.
If you're not familiar with what we're talking about, they were a tag team, they being Storm and Jericho, called the Thrill Seekers. And Jim put together a phenomenal video. If you haven't seen this, go out of your way to check out the Thrill Seekers music video from Smoky Mountain. It is absolutely outstanding. And you might also enjoy their very bloody match that they had. I believe it was against the Heavenly Bodies. And this is something you might want to go check out. I believe it was from August of 94. Night of the Legends, I believe, is the date on the show, or the title of the show. And, wow, something to go out of your way to see. August 5th, 1994. Something else that's been notable from tape collectors about Jim Cornette is the Dairy Queen incident. We can't go through this entire show without talking about this. When I first got into tape collecting in 1997.
Is that a real thing?
What?
Collecting tape?
Yeah.
Like Scotch tape, duct tape. What's your favorite tape?
The type that goes over your fucking mouth.
That's just rude. I'm going, you know what? I'm leaving tomorrow. I'm going to Orlando.
I'm
done with you.
I'm going to be quiet. I had a really good joke there, but I'm going to keep that to myself. Catch me up.
I'm going to make an impact.
The Dairy Queen tape.
Yeah.
We fans heard about it, and it became this thing that everybody wanted to go out of their way to see. And RF Video made a fucking mint back in the day, just based on this one scene. Tell us about this tape, and then maybe try to recreate it a little bit in your very best upset and angry Jim Cornette.
You know, I heard the story first about Jimmy going off at the Dairy Queen. And then I heard that there was actually a tape that existed. And I'm trying to remember the guy's name that recorded it. But Chris Candido and Tammy were in the car. God damn, what's the guy's name in California? But he recorded it. And then they recorded, they went to the Dairy Queen. Cornette ordered.
Jericho's in the car, I think.
I don't know if Jericho was in the car or not. He may have been. I don't really remember. But I remember hearing the story of Cornette ordering and Jim Cornette ordered. Now, if you've ever actually heard Jim Cornette order something, especially in the day when he didn't eat the healthiest of meals, it sounded It sounded ridiculous. Oh, goddamn triple cheese, extra cheese, double mayo, double onion, motherfucker. And I kid you not, there were times when he would order, he would throw in a motherfucker from here, now and then. So they make this order. There's 5 or 6 people in this van or this car, and they make this ridiculous order, and they get up to the window, and they're waiting, and they're waiting, and they're waiting.
Now, this is worth mentioning. This is after a show. It's
late at night, and they got hundreds of miles to drive to get home.
In a van full of wrestlers who are hungry. So they place a ridiculous order.
And the only thing open
is Dairy
Queen. So it's, they want to get their food and want to get the fuck on the road. So they're waiting at the window, and the girl comes over to the window, and she's like, yeah. And she says, where's our goddamn order? And she says something along the lines of, oh, I thought you guys were kidding. Which Cornette, who I guess was in the passenger seat, gets out and starts cutting a promo on this poor little girl and the Dairy Queen thing, gets out of the car, walks around the front of the car to go to the window, and just cut a ungodly promo on this woman. Think I'm kidding, motherfucker? I got 300 fucking miles to drive. God damn it, I want my fucking triple cheese, triple fucking hamburger, goddamn extra onion, double mayonnaise. What the fuck you think we're ordering this shit? It just goes absolutely berserk. And whoever's in the car, they tape this entire thing. Well, I heard about the promo first. And then someone says, oh yeah, it's on tape. I was, oh my God, you got to give me that tape. And already at that time, long before RF Video and those guys got a hold of it, man, I had that tape sent to me. That they were already making copies and sending out this copy of all you've got to see Cornette's rant. So it was just legendary, and you got to check it out. The Jim Cornette Dairy Queen rant is priceless. And folks, this is real life. This shit happened on a daily basis.
It's on YouTube right now. You can just go ahead and throw it in your Google machine. Jim Cornette Dairy Queen incident. Jimmy Del Rey, Jim Cornette, Jericho, Lance Storm, J.R. Benson, and Ron Head.
Ron Head is the one who shot it, yeah.
They're all in the car together.
Jericho, what's his name's not in there? I thought Tammy and Chris were in there too.
No, I didn't think they were. No.
Okay.
Now, I think that what you're remembering on the story is Tammy and Chris were actually inside the restaurant.
Okay.
So while these guys are going through the drive-thru, Tammy and Chris decided to just go in to get their food.
Got it.
So they're all there.
So everybody witnesses. Yeah, it was legendary.
I mean, when Cornette opens the window and leans through and says, "We wouldn't have ordered the shit if we didn't want it, you stupid fucking ugly bitch."
Yeah.
Something like that.
Something like that.
I was like, this dude is my new fucking wrestling hero.
Yeah. Well, okay.
I mean, I don't know that I can behave like that in real life, but goddamn, more power to somebody who can. That's fucking awesome.
Oh, it was absolutely tremendous. You got to check it out, but it was a classic corny rant.
So, chat us up here. You guys start to do a little bit of a talent exchange with Smoky Mountain. You are in the WWF at the time. How does that come about? Who reaches out to who? It feels a little bit unusual for Vince McMahon to do things like this at the time, but I guess because business is down, he's open to other ideas. Or how does the thinking change there, and how does this relationship start?
Well, Jim Ross was doing some commentary, helping Corny out, and it was in between JR's stints too. So, I was always a big fan of Cornette. We were friends, and I was always looking for ways to bring Cornette in. This goes even way back to in the 80s, trying to get Corny in. He just wasn't interested in coming to New York, and wasn't his cup of tea, if you will. But Corny was looking for some help, and JR had ideas, and hey, maybe this could be a place where we could cultivate some young talent, and Corny could coach some of these guys up. So it was some place that we felt we could help control. We could send them talent for some of their bigger shows, help them draw a house, and maybe we'll be able to cultivate some guys and bring them up.
Given Jericho, Storm, Kane, all the names we ran through earlier.
Al Snow.
Even though a lot of those guys didn't come straight in, several did. That's a pretty cool concept that proved to be worthwhile. And we would see him do this later with Ohio Valley Wrestling, and I'm sure we're going to get there later, but it's one of, if you don't know what Jim Cornette did in Ohio Valley, he's one of the fucking unsung heroes of wrestling. We'll get there.
Sure. Well, but it came down to, I really wanted Cornette.
You did.
I did. And Vince loved Cornette. He really wanted Cornette. But I also knew that to get Corny to cooperate with us,
he had to help him on his promotion.
You got to give him something.
Yeah.
So the pitch.
And when you're saying something, you don't mean money. You mean he has a passion project.
Corny wasn't interested. I mean, Corny's always interested in money. That wouldn't be true. But it was more of,
he wanted his deal to succeed.
Sure.
Yeah.
And so it was, all right, if we can promote Corny Smoky Mountain and maybe use some of his talent on our show to be able to give Smoky Mountain a rub that way, maybe we can get Cornette up here. So at the time, Cornette was managing the Heavenly Bodies. Vince, it was always a weird, sticky situation in anything that had to do with my brother and suggesting him for a job or anything like that. So I let other people do that. And I let Pat Patterson kind of pitch, you got to see the Heavenly Bodies. They're great. They work and they do it. I pay the kitties. So I pitched to Cornette, hey, man, would you be interested in coming up and doing some Raws? And maybe bring the bodies. And we plug Smoky Mountain in the process. Well, shit. That was intriguing as hell. So I can get my tag team champions on your show, and I can plug my shit on a national basis. And you may send some of your talent down to Smoky Mountain. And by the way, we'll help pay that talent that we send down there for you, so you don't have to really worry about that. That was an interesting prospect for him. So we book the Heavenly Bodies and Jim Cornette to come to TV. What Corny didn't expect was once he got there, Vince had other ideas. And Vince saw Jim Cornette as the American spokesperson
for
Yokozuna.
So, but let's take a pause here for a minute. The debut happens in on July 25th, in fact, 1993, and they're at the Castle Rec Center in Alexandria Bay, New York. There's roughly 1,000 folks there. It would air on August 2nd. It got a 2.9 rating. And the way he's introduced is Vince McMahon is the babyface commentator at the time. Bobby Heenan is his sidekick on commentary. And they're doing a bit where Ted DiBiase is on the phone discussing his loss over the weekend on Wrestling Challenge to the 1-2-3 Kid, when all of a sudden, Jim Cornette is in the middle of a WWF ring. Smart marks at the time know that, he's running Smoky Mountain Wrestling, but even casual fans recognize him because, hey, this is the guy from Mid-South and from Dallas and from Memphis and most recently WCW and Jim Crockett Promotions. So it's kind of a cool deal. Now, the way Corny remembers this all coming together is he taped some sort of promo with your brother shit talking to you and taking a few jabs. Does this ring a bell?
Yeah, he did something like that at some point. Yeah.
So he mentions that, you guys were friendly. Yeah. You and
that was a promo that he did in Smoky Mountain or something, but I don't think it aired anywhere. It was just something he did.
He writes, Tom's father happened to be visiting from Texas
yeah.
and came to see the Smoky Mountain TV taping that Jimmy debuted at. And we decided to play a little joke on Tom's brother, Bruce. Bruce, as many people know, had been working for the WWF in booking and TV production for several years and had a memorable stint as manager Brother Love on TV in the early 90s. He talks about how he had known you from working in Houston in '84 and that you guys spoke every so often on TV. He continues, so at our TV, the Bodies and I did a promo with Tom's father talking about how the Prichard family, with Tom and Jimmy, was becoming a wrestling dynasty. I asked Tom's father if there were any other members of the family involved in the sport, and he replied that there was one other Prichard working for that fake wrestling company in New York, and a few other friendly jabs were thrown at Bruce. Of course, none of this was ever intended to air on TV, but I called Bruce and told him that his dad had done a great promo introducing Tom's new cousin, and that it was going to air on Smoky TV, and I had made a VHS tape of it so he could see it, without, of course, telling him the specific verbiage. Bruce said he was excited and couldn't wait to see it. So about a week later, I got a call from Bruce, whose first words were, "Very funny, motherfucker." He also alluded to the fact that he had not been alone when he watched it. Although he didn't mention who else had been in the room, it was believed that it was Vince McMahon, Pat Patterson, or both. I was laughing, but actually swallowed a giggle in midstream when the next words out of his mouth were, "So do you guys want to make some shots up here?" I asked if he was serious, and he said yes. They were looking for new talent, and he could see the Bonnies working with some of their teams, especially the Steiners, who had some bouts in WCW with the Midnight Express. So that's kind of how he says it all came around. And of course, eventually he makes the debut. How do you remember the tape thing going down?
I remember getting the tape. I remember watching the tape, and it was hilarious, but we pretty much had an idea.
When you watched the tape, did you watch it with Vince and Pat in your office?
I may have shown it to them at some point, yeah.
And they all
I probably did, yeah. No, of course they loved it.
And they knew it was a rib that he didn't actually air it.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt, yeah.
Okay. So before we talk about the debut angle, where Cornette comes out on Raw for the very first time, let's talk about what if he wouldn't have? Because a lot of guys in wrestling, when they get an offer from one company, they try to play it against the other company, don't they?
Yeah, without a doubt, all the time, man.
So by this time in 1993, Dusty's back with WCW. Now I know Cornette didn't leave there on the best terms in '90, and considering how it all turned out, he probably made the smarter choice in going to the WWF. So Bobby Heenan is ecstatic to see Jim Cornette. He jumps in the ring and proclaims that he is the greatest manager in the history of wrestling, which is a really, really big rub at the time. And everybody kind of agrees that Cornette and Bobby Heenan are two of, if not the greatest managers of all time. Would you agree with that?
Wholeheartedly, and I think they would both claim the other is.
Meltzer wrote of the angle, after watching the angle on Monday Night Raw, which was good, this is a good opportunity for himself. The timing couldn't be better since there are no top flight managers working the national scene. So Cornette will stand out now more than ever when people like Heenan, Hart, Dillon, and Dangerously were around. And it's curious now because when you look at it, you don't really see the great stables of heel managers that we had back in the past. But here, Cornette certainly stands out.
I think Cornette would have stood out with the best of the best. I think if you put Cornette in the stable with like Blassie, Albano, the Grand Wizard, Gary Hart, Bobby Heenan, all those guys, Corny still would have stood out.
I wasn't diminishing Corny's talent.
No, I know what you're saying. I agree with you.
It's just an anomaly that,
yes.
Hey, Vince wasn't doing it at this time, and he's not doing it now. Were you influential in having him have a change of heart, or why does he say, okay, we'll do it? Is it because he feels like Yoko can't communicate the way he needs him to, and he doesn't have confidence in Fuji?
Well, Fuji couldn't cut a promo to save his life, and Fuji wasn't a promo guy, and Yoko wasn't a promo guy. So he needed that heat-seeking talker on that side because you had Yoko who could deliver in the ring and could get heat in the ring, but you needed somebody to talk him into the arena.
So, of course, they debut the Heavenly Bonnies here, and they issue a challenge to Rick and Scott Steiner on behalf of his team, the Heavenly Bodies. Meltzer would write, there was a lot of talk, some of it not positive, among some in the group about the surprise during the past week. None of the wrestlers were informed about it beforehand, which probably should have been handled better since it created a week's worth of what may have been unnecessary worrying and speculation that got out of hand and had guys trying to fend off rumors that went way past ridiculous. Meltzer also writes, and this sounds probably very true about Cornette, quote, "One thing people have to realize is that between running the business, booking the television and house shows, and honing his own stuff, Cornette eats, sleeps, and breathes Smoky Mountain 24 hours per day. Any time spent on outside activities is going to cut into what is already a tight schedule. In August, Cornette only has 3 WWF dates, a television taping on the 18th, one trip to Connecticut to cut face-to-face promos, and SummerSlam on August 30th. He goes on to say, and I thought you might appreciate this, Bruce, it's a nice ego boost that he got Vince McMahon to plug his product on WWF telecasts, but that doesn't mean a hill of beans when it comes to help improving Smoky Mountain's business. Bringing in WWF talent to Smoky Mountain under the right circumstances can help business, but it has to be done carefully and in a manner where this WWF talent isn't portrayed as being superior major league talent, because that will all but make the SMW wrestlers seem minor league in their own territory, which will kill them, but certainly Cornette is smart enough to avoid that obvious pitfall." So there's Meltzer's take. Kind of catch everybody up on what chaos would have been created by not smartening up the boys and him appearing on TV.
Yeah, this coming from the wrestling genius who has booked so many territories and been so successful with all of his own money promoting wrestling territories, and the mad genius that he is with all of his creative ideas that he's come up with on a blank piece of paper. So with all that being said, there probably was paranoia, but at the same time, you lose the surprise and you lose the shock value.
The paranoia comes from who?
The paranoia came on the SMW side.
There you go.
Guys that were afraid that, oh my God, here's our fearless leader that is now on WWF television. Is he leaving us? Are we folding up our tent and going home? But it was done to create that shock, and maybe they should have been, had some kind of a heads up, and it should have been addressed. I don't know how quickly or how Corny did address it, but yeah, there was some paranoia on their side, and there were people wondering what if. And then, of course, which was completely the opposite, it was, oh, well, Bruce, of course, Bruce is going to take care of his brother, so the heavenly bodies are fine. Cornette will be fine, but what about us? So there was quite a bit of paranoia on their side, and maybe they could have handled that a little bit better.
Well, a few weeks later, we start to see the results. Quote, "Just 6 days after drawing its second biggest gate in its history, SMW shattered both its attendance and gate records for the K-Town Showdown on August 20th in Knoxville, headlined by Bob Armstrong and Jim Cornette in a lumberjack match in which Armstrong vowed to refund all the fans' ticket money should he fail to send Cornette to the hospital. A crowd of 2,780 fans paid $18,100, more than double the previous gate in the company's history in Knoxville. So
we killed the territory.
Well, it certainly meant more than a hill of beans.
What?
I'm just saying.
Nostra fucking Meltzer. There he goes again.
Cornette says, "I discovered the ulterior motive behind Bruce's call about an hour after the bodies and I arrived at the arena for our first taping. Bruce told me that Vince and Pat would like to talk to me and led me to catering. I assumed that Vince would want to air out all the negative things I had said over the years about his product, but shortly into the conversation, I realized he had no idea I had ever knocked them. I'd later learned that he never, to this day, watched or has watched any wrestling other than his own, so I didn't elaborate. Vince and Pat presented me with an offhand idea they had just had, that's all in quotes, that I could be WWF champion Yokozuna's American spokesman." So how did you guys convince a guy who is, by his own admission, not a fan of flying to take a WWF schedule? And obviously you try to be limited in your pitch at first. You guys talk him into managing Yokozuna. I guess since he's already there and he's excited and he's got the heavenly bodies excited, you guys kind of have the leverage at that point, and he feels obligated to say yes, doesn't he?
No, he could have said no.
Sure, he could have.
Well,
but
he could have. He's a goddamn man. Well, you know.
Well, of course, we know that he starts managing Yokozuna, and this happens on August 9th. It includes footage of the Lex Express at Comiskey Park, and this was featured for the official contract signing for Luger Yoko at SummerSlam. And this is where we see Cornette come out with Mr. Fuji and, of course, the champion. And he is here as advertised, Yokozuna's new American spokesperson. After Luger signed the contract, Cornette announced that a clause was added to the match that said there would be no rematch. And then, as we mentioned earlier, the Steiner brothers start working with the Heavenly Bodies. The Steiners would win those matches by disqualification when Cornette would interfere. Let's talk about SummerSlam 93. That's where we see the Steiner brothers defeat the Heavenly Bodies after about 9.5 minutes, when both champions, Rick and Scott, pinned Jimmy Del Rey following the Frankensteiner. But what stands out most to me is the interview with the Steiner brothers' mom. Do you remember what happened during this interview ringside?
Absolutely not.
So the Steiners' mom and sister are ringside during the segment, and I guess their sister refers to Rick as Rob.
What's his name?
Well, when you talk to Linda, did she say, I hope Terry wins tonight?
Probably.
I'm just saying, it's fucking awesome. Well,
that's what you get when you go live and you talk to family.
No, I get it. I get it. It's just interesting to me that there's so much fucking scripting and control now. And back then it was so loose that fucking shoot names are making air.
Yeah, shit happens.
So in the main event, as we all know, Lex Luger defeats the world champion Yokozuna, but he does it by count out after about 18 minutes or so. And this doesn't exactly go the way we wanted. Now you can hear all about this in the Lex Express episode if you want what maybe should have happened, could have happened, might have happened, all about the Lex Express. It's available in the archives now. But before we get too much further into this, I feel like we're missing a golden opportunity here. Since Cornette was summoned in his very first meeting to meet with Vince, and Cornette has admitted that he was a little nervous about having to air out all the dirty laundry about the things he had been critical about, what might that have sounded like if Vince was in the loop on the things that Cornette had been saying before?
Oh my God. Shit.
You said what, pal?
Yeah, that just, it's silly even thinking about that.
Can you imagine?
Yeah, no, Vince has heard shit from everybody, so it wouldn't have, I don't think that it would have been.
Goddamn, pal, I appreciate your gusto and your passion. Maybe it was a little robust there, but all right, here's what we're thinking.
He would just turn it around, man.
What's the pitch sound like when he knows that, because he knows that Cornette doesn't want to come in full time?
Oh, he knew, man. It was.
Goddamn, pal, we know you've got a company to run. We know you're concentrated on that Smoky River wrestling you got down there
Smoky River.
And where they, Virginia, yeah, right there where the Smoking River goes through there. But we only need a little bit of your time. Come to TV, cut some promos, make some television, pay-per-view appearances. We'll plug the smoke. What is it again? Yes, we'll plug your promotion.
He knew. He knew what buttons to push. He knew Corny hated to fly. He knew. We just went with that. He also knew Corny needed to promote his promotion. Knew what would get him to sign.
All right, Bruce, we got to take a time out now to talk about our friends over at Magic Spoon. I absolutely love it. And as a kid, we all loved eating cereal. But then as an adult, we say, man, we don't need all that sugar. And, well, I need protein first thing in the morning. And then my wife found Magic Spoon. It's a nostalgically delicious cereal that tastes just like the cereal you grew up on as a kid, but without the sugar. And with that ton of protein, my wife wants us all to eat first thing in the morning. And if you're already a Magic Spoon fan, here's some big news. These cats over at Magic Spoon have turned their super popular cereal into high-protein treats that are light, crispy, and taste just like those classic crunchy cereal bars. You know the ones. Magic Spoon's brand new treats are so delicious, they've become my go-to snack, and my wife loves it on her way to the gym. The cereal is the real deal from Magic Spoon. They all have 13 grams of protein, 0 grams of sugar, and only 4 grams of net carbs, so you can feel good about what you're eating with every serving. The most popular flavors are fruity and cocoa, but there's many more. The fruity one tastes just like you imagined it does. And I gotta admit, as a kid, I didn't rock with the cocoa too much. But as an adult, dude, the cocoa is great, and what it does to the milk after, come on now. Magic Spoon's brand new treats are crispy, they're crunchy, they're airy, and it's an easy way to get 12 grams of protein on the go. And for the first time ever, Magic Spoon treats are available in grocery stores with delicious flavors like marshmallow and chocolatey peanut butter. I want you to try it right now. What are you waiting for? Get $5 off your next order at magicspoon.com/wrestle. Or just look for Magic Spoon on Amazon or in your nearest grocery store. That's magicspoon.com/wrestle for $5 off. Magic Spoon. Hold on to the dream.
So let's talk about Survivor Series 1993. I've always been a little fascinated by this because we see Tom Prichard and Jimmy Del Rey with Jim Cornette defeating the Smoky Mountain Tag Team Champions Ricky Morton and Robert Gibson to win the titles after about 13 minutes. This happens when Prichard pins Gibson after Del Rey came off the top rope with Cornette's tennis racket. This all happens, of course, behind the referee's back. But on commentary, Ross notes that the feud between Cornette and the Rock and Roll Express had been going 10 years, dating back to when Cornette managed the Midnight Express. Everything about this is fascinating to me because this happens at a time when you guys aren't acknowledging number 2 at all. And I realized that at the time, it's not like WCW was presenting the Midnight Express or the Rock and Roll Express. But this just doesn't seem like something Vince does at the time, to have another promotion's titles on here and to have what happened in another company 5 years prior discussed.
Well, it was something that we were plugging in the Rock and Roll Express and the Midnight Express issue. And it was something that was going on in Smoky Mountain at the time. So to acknowledge the history, and we didn't say WCW and went back to the original feud, which is really Mid-South, but that's what Jim was alluding to. But from time to time, Vince would acknowledge history, if you will, and go back and throw those kind of tidbits in there, especially with JR.
Oh yeah. Hashtag it's Miller time. Let's talk about 1994. They start the year off, of course, with Cornette still being the American spokesman for Yokozuna. They're still involved in the feud with Lex Luger. But let's fast forward to WrestleMania 10. It's Madison Square Garden. It's March 20th, 1994. Sellout, 18,000 fans on hand. And Cornette makes his WrestleMania debut, and he's here in Yokozuna's corner. I know that Cornette had been involved in a lot of big cards, whether it was Starcades or shows at the Superdome. But WrestleMania, even for someone who says he hated the product, had to be a pretty fucking cool little deal for anybody in the business. Do you remember having a conversation with Corny about his involvement in WrestleMania and that being his first one at WrestleMania 10?
Not in particular, but I think it's a big deal for anybody. And I'm sure that Corny felt that it was a big deal, milestone in his career to finally get there.
And then eventually 1995, let's just go ahead and skip around, because through the rest of 94, you see Cornette working with Yokozuna. He's also making appearances with the Heavenly Bodies, but mostly focusing on Smoky Mountain Wrestling. He's doing that full time. But as we cruise on in to 1995 in the WWF, now we see Owen and Yokozuna teaming together with Jim Cornette in their corner. And at WrestleMania 11, they would actually win the tag titles from the Smoking Guns. Do you remember any fun ribs that Owen Hart would have had at the expense of Yokozuna or Jim Cornette? Because this feels like there was lots of comedy in this trio.
I really don't remember anything specific, but I'm sure that, especially because Corny was easy to rib. Corny was someone that especially like when Jake was there and taking the snake and shoving it up Corny's behind, and you never saw Corny move or be as agile as he was when those type of things took place. So I'm sure Owen had a lot of fun at Cornette's expense.
In 1995, Bill Watts comes to the WWF, and I found this always to be a really interesting development, especially when you consider the philosophies of Watts and Vince McMahon. Meltzer wrote in the Observer, Vince announced at a meeting of all WWF wrestlers prior to the In Your House pay-per-view show on September 24th in Saginaw, Michigan, that Bill Watts would be taking a larger share of responsibility for the creative end of wrestling. Both McMahon and Watts spoke at the meeting, with McMahon describing the new situation as he would be spending more time in his role as a corporate executive, and that Watts would take over many of his duties when it came to the creative aspects of the television, arena, and pay-per-view shows. McMahon said that he would still work for Watts on these aspects, but that he wouldn't overrule Watts. In addition to being in charge of finishes on television, arena, and pay-per-view shows, Watts will attend more arena events and has already started to evaluate wrestlers' performances and talking to them about it after matches. Although Watts gained a horrible reputation after his tenure in WCW a few years ago, up to this point, there has been no discontent among WWF wrestlers, at least to any major degree, about Watts since he's arrived. I found that interesting because Cornette was a Watts guy because he respected Watts' philosophy of believable and credible wrestling. He really wanted to focus on the toughness and athleticism and just the idea that wrestling should be presented as a serious presentation. And it had a major impact, probably, on how Cornette thought about the business for the rest of his career and even now. But when he comes in here, is this something that Jim is looking forward to? Or is he so focused on Smoky Mountain he kind of doesn't give a shit?
I think that Jim was so focused on Smoky Mountain at that time still that he was probably happy that Watts was there because it was an ally for him and someone that he could personally relate to. But at the same time, I don't think that he was looking at it as hooray for me, because he wasn't looking at WWF as a priority for Jim Cornette.
Yeah. We'll talk about Bill Watts and the WWF in more detail, I'm sure, in the future. Smoky Mountain would close up shop in 1995. He would write, he being Jim Cornette, TV markets weren't going to make it in the wrestling recession of the mid-90s. Even the WWF lost $6 million in 1995. I hated to, but I had to close it up in December. So Cornette would close the doors in late November 95, early December, and sell off all of the Smoky Mountain rights and videos to the WWF. And later he would say that he probably chose the wrong time to start a wrestling fed because the business as a whole was in a recession. And there's been a lot of talk through the history of wrestling that the business is cyclical, and it was obviously in a down when he opened it. Meltzer wrote, the announcement was made to the wrestlers during the intermission at the house show on November 26th in Cookeville, Tennessee by President Jim Cornette. Cornette told the wrestlers that barring a miracle, it would be the group's final show. At the end of the show, in a symbolic gesture after the main event, all the faces and heels joined in, including the Heavenly Bodies, in attacking Cornette and leaving him for dead in the middle of the ring as he was carried back to the dressing room. On the December 18th, 95 edition of the Observer, Meltzer wrote, Jim Cornette had a meeting with Vince McMahon where he was offered a spot helping book, but no word on if he's accepted. So do I have it right here that Cornette wouldn't have moved from Tennessee to Connecticut to take this booking job until Smoky Mountain was completely closed up? So probably late 95, early 96 when he moves?
Yeah, there was absolutely, that wasn't an option for Corny until he just reached the end and knew that Smoky Mountain would not be able to continue. So made the deal to come in.
So he makes the deal to come in. And when he comes in to do creative. I'd love to hear what it sounded like the first time Vince McMahon and Jim Cornette are in a creative meeting together.
Wow. that day, and I forget who all was there. I know it was me, Vince, and maybe Cornette. I don't know if JR was sitting in with us that day or who. I want to say there was somebody else there, but it was, the first time you're feeling someone out, and the first time you get in a meeting, and it's a happy joy meeting, but Corny was into telling stories, and Vince was kind of feeling Cornette out, and it just got to be a storytelling day. And I remember Corny riding with me, and when it was time to go, Vince pulling me in the kitchen and going,
God damn, pal. Can't have another day like that.
and I just had to kind of rein Corny in and say, "Hey, man, we got to get down to business." But it was just a strange day, the first day, and Vince started second guessing himself. But it was simply a feeling out day, and it was just simply guys getting comfortable with everybody. But Cornette had a completely different philosophy on things, and the idea was for Vince McMahon to take that time and spend more time in the office, and for Cornette and I to kind of take over the television writing, let Jim Ross take over the day-to-day booking of the house shows, and Vince McMahon to kind of just sit back and supervise from afar. So the idea was originally to get me and Corny off to ourselves, kind of like Pat Patterson and I were for a while.
So Cornette, as we mentioned, obviously finds himself moving to Connecticut. I have got to hear some fun stories, and if you don't have anything, then just let me know what it might sound like for Cornette to recap what it was like to live in Connecticut, or the first time he went looking for houses in Connecticut. Give me fucking something.
The fucking Yankee motherfuckers! Corny hated the Northeast, hated Connecticut. And at first he was living downtown Stamford at these high-rise apartments. So you take a country boy from Louisville, Kentucky, and stick him in a high-rise in the middle of Stamford, Connecticut, and he was positively miserable. So he hated the people. He couldn't understand them. They couldn't understand him. What the fuck can't you understand, you goddamn Yankee motherfucker? I'll kill you. It was just a constant battle of us versus them with Jimmy, and he tried hard to fit in, but it was a losing battle on so many fronts. The hatred of, now imagine you're living in the Northeast, and for those of you who have never been in the Northeast, I would say that the Northeast has some of the greatest Italian food outside of Italy, any other place in the world. And Jim had his mom send him Chef Boyardee spaghetti dinners by the case. And when I say by the case, man, I'm talking like the big 24 case of Chef Boyardee spaghetti dinner. Goddamn, it's a full spaghetti dinner. You take the goddamn tomato sauce, you get a pound of goddamn hamburger, you mix the hamburger up with it, you put the tomato sauce in there, you boil the fucking spaghetti. It's a perfect goddamn meal. But all around him are some of the greatest Italian restaurants anywhere in the world.
Sure.
But he thought they sucked, and that Chef Boyardee boxed spaghetti from Kentucky was better because he couldn't find that in Connecticut because they actually had fresh pasta and real homemade sauce, and he wanted his Chef Boyardee box spaghetti.
I hear you, but let me just go ahead and give a shout out for Chef Boyardee's ravioli and pizza when I was a kid. That stuff was the real MVP.
Oh, you goddamn hillbilly motherfucker, you.
I was a poor white boy from Alabama.
Nothing wrong with that.
Don't be hating.
I ain't hating.
I didn't have all this fanciness that you did as a kid.
I didn't have it until I went up there.
So that makes you better than me?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
All right then.
So you talked a minute ago about trying to get Cornette kind of off to your own like it was with you and Pat. But there for a while, creative was pretty much just you and Cornette. From win to win, what were the good ideas? What were the bad ideas? What are your favorite memories of doing that?
Well, I'll tell you the funny thing. There were so many just little incidents that happened when we were writing by ourselves. We weren't writing by ourselves. We were actually writing with Vince from time to time. And I remember one day we were at Vince's house, and Cornette hated going to Vince's house too because of the traffic on the Merritt Parkway. Absolutely drove him insane. But every morning it was just a chore. I bought a house in Monroe, Connecticut. The idea in my head was that we would go to my house and work out of my house in Monroe. So I told Corny, get a house, get someplace up in Monroe, which is 45 minutes on a good day to get to the office. But I didn't want to be close to the office because when you're close to the office, you get called into the office a lot. And I liked working out of my house. So Cornette gets a place right not too far from where I was. And we were working at my house. We had a little deal, but I think one of the funniest things was when we would get stuck, we started out the first time and we wrote a pay-per-view. I forget which pay-per-view it was, but at the end of each match, you would write down on the run sheet at the end of the match, okay, boom, so-and-so goes over, music on out. So whenever we would get stuck, we would just look at each other and kind of go, okay, music on out. That was our next transition. That's how punchy you kind of get in writing things. But anyway, we get together with Vince one day, and this is before Corny had made the move, and there's no Cornette. So I called Jim. Jim was in Sanford, living in the high-rise at this point. And I said, hey, man, where are you? You going to make it in? Oh, goddamn. George died. I'm like, oh, my God, Corny. What do you mean George died? So to give you a little backstory, George was a rat. Do you remember the Mankind vignettes?
Yes.
Do you remember the rat that Mankind had in the original vignettes in the little cell, the Mankind original vignettes with the rat crawling around, crawling all over him?
Are you about to tell me that was Jim Cornette's rat?
That was Jim Cornette's rat, George.
Wait. Is that the first rat Jim Cornette ever had?
That was the first rat that Jim Cornette ever had that had huge balls.
And 4 legs.
Okay.
All right.
So Jimmy had a pet rat. His name was George.
Who in the business didn't have a pet rat?
There you go. And one of the things that was particularly peculiar about this rat was his large testicles. But I'm calling Cornette on this one day, and George had passed. George had left us. I said, well, oh, man, I'm sorry about that. Well, goddamn, it's terrible. He was sick, and we took him to the vet, and the vet was just beside himself, and they had to do surgery. I said, wait a minute, stop. Corny. You mean to tell me that you took a fucking rat to a vet in Stamford, Connecticut, and they said the rat was sick, but that they could do surgery and make him better? Well, fuck yeah, what would you do if it was one of your loved ones? This is so sad. He described how the rat was laying there and George was there. And they had like a little apparatus and they breathed for him during the procedure.
You're fucking making this up.
I swear to God on my children's head. And the nurse sat there and she puffed little breaths into George's mouth so he could breathe and continue to breathe through the operation, through the surgery. But he didn't make it. He died. $1,100 for a rat surgery.
I thought the purpose of the rats was surgery.
Okay.
I thought they were.
No. And so Corny missed about 6 weeks worth of work, mourning the rat and laying in bed and holding the box. So being the asshole that I am, I know that's hard to believe. I'm like, all right, man. So, what now? So what'd you do? Did they just throw the rat away, or you guys flush it, or what? Fuck you, goddamn it! I'll kill you, motherfucker! I said, well, Corny, what do you do with a dead rat? Right now, we've got him in the freezer. So George died. They got the body.
The body.
They got the
body.
From the bed.
The body.
They put it in a Ziploc, put it in a fucking shoebox, and put him in the freezer. So that he can
Next to the ice cream.
next to the ice cream and next to the frozen pizza and everything else, so that he can have a proper burial in the Carolinas or Kentucky or wherever the fuck George came from. So he could be buried with the rest of his rat family. I'm not ribbing. This is a true story. Corny, tell the story on your thing if you want to, but he was distraught and missed work over the rat dying. Very distraught. Because Cornette's a sensitive son of a bitch, man.
Oh, yeah. So, do we know why the rat died?
Maybe it had mesothelioma. I'll tell you another, this is another one, a good one. When we would work at the house, my wife would come in and oftentimes go and get us lunch. And she would say, okay, what do you guys want? And Corny would, well, goddamn, I want a goddamn cheesesteak. I want this. I want extra cheese, double mayo, extra onion. And she would say, what do you want that on? Because you go to a deli, they always ask you, hey, what do you want that on? So you want that on a hard roll? What the fuck is the fascination over Yankee motherfuckers and your hard bread? I like soft bread. I like spongy bread that I can put my teeth into. I don't want any hard bread. Why the fuck would you want a hard bread? You bite into the goddamn bread up here. It's fucking hard. I hate hard bread. You know what a hard roll is?
Yeah.
It's just a soft roll, but it's named a hard roll up in Yankeeville. They got shit fucked up. And that always just tickled the fuck out of my wife that he thought that the hard rolls were actually hard. Yeah. And then there was a time that Jake worked with us, and they used to ask Corny to go by and pick Jake up at the hotel.
So this is 96 when he comes back?
Yeah, roughly at that time.
Okay.
And, and drove Cornette nuts because he had to drive about 30 minutes out of his way to go back into Stanford to go pick Jake up, then to come back through Stanford to get back on the Merritt Parkway to go to Greenwich. And finally, he made the plea to me and Vince. God damn! Jake didn't have a driver's license.
Yeah.
And so, God damn, somebody else pick him up. Is there another way? And somehow Jake figured out another way to get to work without Corny having to.
Was it a rib of you guys? I mean, you knew you were fucking with him to do it?
No, it was simply that it was.
Hey, you're the new guy. Go fucking get him.
Well, they had a relationship.
Jake.
Sure.
Yeah.
And Corny. Okay, so Cornette gets this beautiful house. Beautiful house.
In Connecticut.
In Connecticut. He's renting it.
Okay.
Gorgeous. One of the big, like open fucking windows lets a lot of the natural light in and shit. Gorgeous.
All right, you're mentioning the windows for a reason. Let's hear it.
Well, you go over there and it's like, what the fuck? And you see from the outside, man, and you walk in and every window is blacked out with black construction paper.
No.
What do you mean no?
You're making that
You
up.
weren't there. I'm sorry, Dave Meltzer. No, he did not have it.
Is he fucking cooking meth in there? What's he blacking it out for?
The light hurts my eyes. How the fuck can you get any sleep? Goddamn light shining through, motherfuckers.
He's a vampire.
Essentially.
Huh.
So he had every window in this beautiful home blacked out with black construction paper. I'm not going to spend any goddamn money on drapes on a fucking rent house. True story. And he also took every light bulb and changed the lights to pink lights because they were softer.
Wait. Not like a clear light or a soft white,
Pink.
but a pink.
Pink. Kind of like Bret Hart. Dun, 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 dun.
Was he single at the time?
Yeah.
Cornette was doing some wild shit in there.
Hey, man, more power to him.
Did you ever, are you going to share the story about the time you went to Cornette's house?
No. Not that one.
Let's talk a little bit about 1996, because this is a year where we see Cornette doing lots of managerial stuff, most notably with Big Van Vader. He has the Shawn Michaels feud that went sideways. Hear all about that in our Vader episode in the archives. You can also hear the moment where it went wrong and what Cornette thought about Shawn in that situation. But 96 is also the year where we saw the curtain call happen. And it's not as if Jim Cornette has ever been short on opinions. What did Jim think of the curtain call?
Went fucking banana. It was me, Corny, and Vince that night riding with Vince. And
let's catch everybody up. The curtain call was May 19th, 1996 at Madison Square Garden. The Clique, which at the time was made up of Shawn Michaels, Kevin Nash, who was working as Diesel, Scott Hall, who was working as Razor Ramon, Sean Waltman, who was working as the 1-2-3 Kid, and Triple H, who was working as Hunter Hearst Helmsley, were known as the Clique. And on this night, it was the last time that Hall and Nash would be a part of the group. And they had an incident where they broke character. So there's good guys and bad guys in the ring together, hugging, raising each other's hands to close the show at the home arena for the company, Madison Square Garden. And this happened on May 19th, 1996. Continue your story.
well, it just, I think that the narrative on that has changed so much over the years, and you have to understand the time and the mentality of those in the business that had spent our entire life protecting the livelihood and the sanction, the sanctimony of the business. And what took place with Shawn Michaels as our babyface champion. It just had this grueling cage match with the evil villain Diesel and beat the shit out of him and super kicked him. And then Diesel's out flat, laying in the middle of the ring, selling. And then Shawn gets over him, reaches down, kisses him, and Diesel miraculously comes to with the, and no sells everything that they just did. And they hug and kiss. And then Razor and Triple H come out, who had worked earlier in the night. And they all hug and do a curtain call, a bow. So it was appalling to those of us who had been in the business forever, and it just was something that had never been done, and something that guys do practically every goddamn show now. Some form of this in some way or shape or form, But at that time, wasn't cool.
Sure.
And Cornette was beside himself. Cornette was upset. Cornette wanted to fire everybody. The only ones left to fire were Shawn and Triple H.
Was he in Vince's ear?
Oh, yeah. I mean, we both were. We both went off. We went and we had dinner at Smith & Walensky's that night. But the theme was one of that it wasn't just a fuck you to the rest of the boys, but it was kind of to do it in Madison Square Garden, where Vince's dad and his grandfather and everybody had promoted before we just looked at that as spitting in Vince's family's face and took it personal. And I try not to take the business so seriously anymore. But yeah, Cornette was beside himself. He was pretty pissed off. He wanted to fire everybody.
What would that have sounded like?
Fucking fire the motherfuckers, goddamn non-drawing motherfucker. The goddamn My Little Pony fucking sidekick motherfucking champion. I'd have him drop the goddamn belt to the Brooklyn Brawler tomorrow night. Yeah, it's just that kind of shit.
1996.
First match, 1, 2, 3.
1996 was also the year that you got married.
I did.
Recently celebrated your anniversary. Happy belated anniversary to you and the missus.
Yeehaw. WrestleMania 12.
I bring that up because I think I have this right. Once upon a time, you guys had like a little get together for some people from the office, and it was to commemorate your wedding, but it wasn't the actual wedding. And there was a meal.
No, it was actual wedding. Cornette came to my wedding.
Well, let's hear that story, because I knew I had some details screwed up, but you've told me this before. It's a good time.
Oh my God. Well, we were in line at Caesar's Palace, checking in, and Vince says to me,
Hey, pal, what are we doing after?
and I hadn't really given it any thought. We were getting married at the Little White Chapel there in Vegas, and I just thought, well, probably 20 of us would just come back to the bar and have a few drinks. Maybe find some place to eat, go get a bite to eat. Who knows? And Vince's like,
Well, you mind if I do anything for you?
sure, do whatever you want. And Vince put together, he got a nice private room at the Palm in Caesars. And we had like 22 people, 24 people, whatever it was. And just put on this spread for us. And everybody got to order off the menu, but they had, just every appetizer in the world and so on and so forth. But before they brought out appetizers, they went around and got everybody's entree order. Well, we're sitting there and they bring out all the appetizers. So my wife and I are sitting kind of in the middle of everybody, and it was a big room, and the tables all went around kind of in a square. And directly across from us is Jim and his significant other at the time. But before I know it, Corny's over my shoulder. It's like, God damn, we gotta go. What do you mean you gotta go? I was, fuck, man, they're just bringing out appetizers now, man. We haven't even eaten yet. Well, goddamn, the garlic. I was, what the fuck? What are you talking about? The garlic. She smells the garlic. We gotta go. The garlic. We can't do garlic. She smells the garlic. We gotta go. And I ordered a goddamn fucking T-bone. I got baked potatoes. I got goddamn all gratin potatoes. I got this. I was gonna get this for dessert. I was like, well, just sit. But his significant other at the time smelled the garlic, and they had to leave. So Cornette left his entire meal, went back and ate room service because it smelled of garlic. Can't make this shit up.
No, you can't. 96 is also notable because I believe this is the year that Vince Russo joins the creative team. Is that right?
About that time, yeah. Well, it was... Russo had been doing the magazine, and we had debuted the Raw magazine sometime in there. But I was looking for help, and I wanted more heads to help us out with writing television and what have you. So Vince Russo had always shared ideas and always loved to talk the business. So I thought, hey man, let's have Russo sit in with us. So Russo sat in a few times, and right about this time, Shane McMahon got married. But the turning point for me was when J.J. Dillon walked out and J.J. Dillon quit. Corny and I were at the house, and we were writing TV, and I get a phone call, and it was Vince McMahon, and he says,
Bruce, J.J. Dillon is resigned and is no longer with the company.
Jim Ross was in South Africa. Jerry Briscoe was in South Africa. We had a tour over there. And this was like on a Thursday. Shane McMahon's wedding was on that Saturday. It's just funny how you remember time frame on all this shit. And Corny and I stopped everything we were doing. We came into the office and like, okay, what the fuck? What are we going to do? So on and so forth. And that was the turning point where Vince asked me to essentially take over what JJ was doing in talent relations. In doing that, there was so much there to do, and I wasn't good at it, didn't like it, didn't want to do it, but he didn't want to put JR in that spot at that time because JR was negotiating with WCW, and It was one of those deals where JR really wanted it. Back then he wanted it so bad, Vince wasn't going to give it to him. Even though he was the better man for that job. I did it. And in doing that, I wasn't able to devote as much time to the creative television writing and everything. So Vince stepped back into the creative end of shit, and we started, we put Russo and had Russo be a more frequent guest in the writing. And eventually it just became where I couldn't participate in a lot of that creative, and it became Vince Russo and the team of Vince Russo and Jim Cornette was born. Thank you, J.J. Dillon. So, Corny, when you get all pissed off about shit and start going off, it's JJ's fault.
So, how long did that last before they hated each other?
They probably hated each other before that really took place, but it didn't take long before Cornette and Russo were at odds, because Russo, being, a New York Yankee and having a completely different viewpoint on the business of wrestling, and feeling that Cornette's ideas and Cornette's views on the business were antiquated and Southern hick, and that the center of the world is New York, they clashed almost immediately.
Hey, I bet you've wondered, does Blue Chew actually work? If you're asking that question, we want you to know that Blue Chew's putting their money where their mouth is and giving you 1 month free. Blue Chew is a unique online service that delivers the same active ingredients as Viagra, Cialis, and Levitra, but at a fraction of the cost and in a chewable form. The process is simple, too. You just sign up at BlueChew.com, consult with one of their licensed medical providers, and once you're approved, you'll receive your prescription within days. Blue Chew's tablets are made in the USA, prepared and shipped directly to your door. But the best part is, it's all online. That means no visits to the doctor's office, no awkward conversation, and no waiting in line at the pharmacy. Take them anytime, day or night, so you can plan ahead or be ready whenever an opportunity arises. Blue Chew wants men rock hard. That's what they told me. That's the mission. They will not stop until every man is bricked up like a brick house, until every tent is pitched, until every rod is raised. Discover your options at BlueChew.com. And we've got a special deal for our listeners. Try Blue Chew free when you use our promo code WRESTLE at checkout. Just pay $5 shipping. That's BlueChew.com. The promo code is WRESTLE, and you'll receive your first month free. Visit BlueChew.com for more details and important safety information. And we thank Blue Chew for sponsoring today's podcast.
Vince McMahon is a guy who usually is able to put, let bygones be bygones, and wants to just cut through all the bullshit just for what's best for business, pardon the pun. It feels like he would have thought this was a waste of time and energy. Did he ever try to get these guys to soothe it out and smooth it over?
I think that Vince thrives on the chaos and thrives on the conflict.
Sure.
So that was probably for him. He probably encouraged some of that and liked it because it wasn't two guys that shared the exact same ideas. So he liked to hear the different viewpoints, and then he would try and weigh in somewhere in the middle. But, there was a point there where I was asked, and I don't remember if it was Vince McMahon or Jim Ross or somebody that was like, maybe Bruce, you're friends with both Cornette and you're friends with Russo. Maybe you can kind of help smooth this thing over and get these guys together and not make them shake hands and be friends, but get them in a different setting. Get them around each other. Find some common ground, if you will. So I had a barbecue at my house on a Sunday afternoon. Invited, I believe I had Jim and Jan Ross over, and Vince Russo and his wife and his 3 kids. And we had a nice little cookout. Jim Cornette came, and Cornette hates kids. Hates them. God damn, what the fuck are they good for? Snot-nosed little motherfuckers. But I'm trying to get Corny in a different environment and get him to see Russo as a human being and vice versa. So during this time, it was the same day that I fed Vince Russo's son VJ dog ice cream. You know, the Frosty Paws. Ever see that stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah, we fed that to his youngest son, and then convinced him after the fact that he was going to grow a tail and become a dog. Which to a 4 or 5 year old, that's traumatic.
Your wife having dog ice cream does not surprise me. You convincing a child he's going to grow a tail also does not surprise me.
Yeah, well, whatever.
Business as usual at the Prichard household.
Business as usual at the Prichard household. So Cornette, who's kind of had his fill of children and family time and, you know, happy, joy. I had my backyard at the time was about the size of a football field. And way in the back of the backyard, I had a hammock underneath these two gigantic trees. And it was just the wind came through. It was cool and comfortable. And it had nice little padding on the hammock and all this. And Cornette sees this. And he's like, oh, heaven. It was far enough out where he couldn't hear the kids yelling and screaming and what have you. And he traipses out to the hammock and lays on the hammock. He ignores all of us and goes out to be by himself. So anybody knows Jim Cornette knows that, you know, when Jim puts his mind to it, he can fall asleep fairly quickly. So we gave him probably about 20, 30 minutes, made sure that he was good in slumberland, probably getting some good REM. And for some reason, I had super soakers at the house. And those damn kids might have found those. And if you can imagine a 4-year-old kid and a 6-year-old kid, or however old they were, but they were young, traipsing out and trying not to laugh and trying to be quiet, and they go all the way out, run all the way out to the thing, and they open up on Jim Cornette with these super soakers. And a super soaker gives you that one big stream of water, and it doesn't stop
till it's empty.
And they hit Corny until the damn things were empty. And it was absolutely fabulous. Corny took a bump out of the hammock, chased the kids, and of course they're kids, and Corny's corny. He can't run. But I think to this day he hasn't forgiven those little bastards for that.
Corny cussing kids is going to be awesome.
Goddamn little motherfuckers, I'll kill you both. I'll skin you when I catch you. If I ever catch you. I'll find out where you sleep and wake you up. And then I'll skin you. If I could hold you down, bastard. And your Yankee father, motherfucker. Fuck him too. So that was just one more reason for Corny to hate Vince Russo.
All right, so lots of stuff. Let's briefly cover 1997. Lots of stuff happening in the WWF in 1997. The rise of Steve Austin, the turn of Bret Hart, the Hart Foundation, the problems behind the scenes with Shawn and Bret, the screw job, lots and lots and lots of stuff going on. Real quick, Corny would have been, in my head, a huge proponent of the push of Stone Cold Steve Austin. Fair to say?
Yeah, fair to say. Everybody was.
I feel like he'd have loved the anti-American Bret Hart as well.
Not as much as he loved the All-American Patriot.
That's what I want to talk about. So there's this famous clip out there of a Jim Cornette shoot where he talks about a situation, we'll say, with Kevin Dunn. Can you catch everybody up on this Patriot Kevin Dunn conversation? You were there. People have heard for years Cornette's version. What's Bruce Prichard's version?
Okay. Well, it starts out, it was during a time that the company was having some challenging financial times. So we were trying to save money any way that we could. One of the ways to save money, especially when you're going into Nova Scotia, is if you fly on a Saturday and you stay over on a Saturday night, your trip, which would normally, like, for example, to go in and do Raw, and if you went in on a Sunday night and came back on a Tuesday, the trip may be $1,000. However, if you go in on a Saturday, you keep that Saturday night stay over, your trip may be $200 because of the Saturday night stay. So it was decided that everyone going to TV would have to go into Nova Scotia on a Saturday afternoon, spend Saturday night there and Sunday, and then do Raw on Monday night and do the TV after the fact to save money. And you say, well, you got a hotel, you got all that other shit. All that other shit, it was still cheaper doing that than going out on a Sunday night. And so everybody had to do it. So now everybody's got to leave home 2 days early to go to Nova Scotia. You ever been to Nova Scotia?
I don't plan to go anytime soon.
Well, it's beautiful in the summer, but that's all I got to say about that. To add insult to injury, we get into Nova Scotia, and Vince wants to have a production meeting. So what else you going to do? You know, I mean, hey, you're in Nova Scotia. You got to leave home early. Well, let's work. Let's have a meeting. Let's have a meeting about having a meeting. And we're sitting in this meeting room.
Let me catch everybody up here. This is probably happening in July of 1997.
Sounds about right.
There was a couple of dates there, July 20th in Sydney, Nova Scotia, and then the next day in Halifax, Nova Scotia. That was July 20th and 21st, 1997. Sorry about that. Keep
Yeah,
going.
and I think we were at Halifax. I think we based ourselves out of Halifax. I don't really remember exactly, but we were in a meeting, and it was the usual suspects in this agent meeting because everybody had to be there early. And Cornette goes on talking, and at some point, KD might have said something along the lines of, Jim, you're just tiresome. Which, I guess, went up Corny's ass sideways with red hot poker. And Corny immediately shot back. Let me tell you something, you Bugs Bunny looking motherfucker. And the whole room just kind of goes silent. Because, it just was a personal attack. And granted, KD probably started it with his comment about, well, Jim, you're tiresome, and they hated each other. Man, every chance that Cornette had to dig Kevin, he did. Every chance that Kevin had to make a comment about Southerners and you're just too Southern and that Southern comments, and they just drove each other absolutely nuts. So with the Bugs Bunny comment, and Cornette stands up, and I remember me and Jerry Briscoe having to escort Cornette out of the room and just go, come on, Jimmy, let's go. And it wasn't like anybody was going across the table at anybody. It just was uncomfortable, unnecessary, and just kind of fucked up. But here's the fucked up part. Cornette gets sent to his room, okay? Well, now this motherfucker doesn't have to go to any more of the meetings. He gets to go to his room and relax and chill out and have room service and watch TV. We're still stuck in the meetings. And we break up that meeting and we go to lunch. And one of the funniest fucking things, man, Jim Ross, me, Jerry Briscoe, and Vince all sit down at a table. And Vince looks at JR and says,
Goddamn, JR. You got a problem on your hands
with Cornette. And JR's like, what the fuck? Why don't you have a goddamn problem? But it was absolutely hilarious because it was, hindsight being 2020, it was kind of funny being there. And JR having to deal with it after the fact. I was just happy I didn't have to deal with it. But
Kevin Dunn would never be Jim Cornette's favorite person.
Ever. No.
Why would that be? But independent of this meeting.
Because he was a Southerner. He just hated Cornette.
So it wasn't so much that Cornette hated Kevin Dunn. It's that Kevin Dunn hated Cornette.
Oh, it was mutual. It was definitely mutual. They couldn't stand the sound sight of each other. Absolutely. That was just pure hatred.
And neither one respected what the other one could do.
At all.
Totally thought the other one was full of shit.
Yes. Couldn't stand each other. Couldn't stand the sight of each other. Couldn't stand the sound of each other's voice.
Do you think it is, not trying to beat Jim up here, but do you think it's fair that Cornette has continually called him Bucky Beaver motherfucker and made fun of the teeth and did all these crazy impressions over the years?
You know, that's Jim.
That feels way out of character for him, because normally, if that's not his deal, he'll fuck with you about your stupid ass opinion more so than your teeth.
Yeah, but again,
that just shows me it's like personal. Like he
is.
Fucking hates him.
Yeah, it is. It's personal on both ends. But to me, it's silly personal.
Yeah.
I think that there comes a point where
when you're just busting on somebody's teeth, it's like, fuck, dude.
Yeah, get over it.
You're reaching.
Get over it. They're both very good at what they do, and it's just it's gotten to the point of ridiculousness and silliness. And I think that Corny does it because it's a good topic. It's like,
oh, for sure, people want to hear it.
Yeah, fuck with Russo, fuck with Kevin Dunn because it's entertaining, and his story and his recollection of it is absolutely entertaining and funny as shit.
Can you give us any sort of instance where you could see that you would side with Cornette and that Kevin Dunn had fucked some shit up?
Fuck shit up in what way?
In any way. Can you say anything critical of Kevin Dunn at all right now, or are your balls in a jar in Stamford, Connecticut?
No, I think from Kevin's point of view, I think that Kevin could be absolutely fucking brutal with some of his opinions and the way that he would talk to people, especially during live TV. He sat in the truck and could just be positively ruthless of you stupid motherfucker and just browbeating people from the production.
Not like in a funny way like me and you do here, but like for real.
No, for real.
Okay.
But, and again, it's going to sound like I'm defending him, but you have to understand the pressure, and it is kind of like when you and I get hot at you, fuck you, dumb son of a bitch. His could be more mean-spirited.
But he meant it the same way we do.
I think that he probably did. That was his way of communicating.
Okay.
And coming up in that era, in that time.
With Vince
McMahon, man, that's how you communicated sometimes. You had to.
Yeah.
You had to be that asshole, and you needed that asshole. So.
And Jim Cornette took the brunt of that one too many times for his liking.
But Jim's shit, man, and it got personal because it was that Southern shit, and it was it came across as demeaning. It came across as I'm better than you because you're just a stupid Southern hick. And Corny's a lot of things, but he's not stupid.
No.
And he is a Southern hick, but he's a pretty fucking creative and fucking smart Southern hick.
Now, in fairness,
hillbilly motherfucker.
Not a lot of people you can say Southern hick about and then be as liberal as Jim. Jim, while he may be from the South, certainly doesn't have all like traditional Bible Belt opinions on stuff.
No, absolutely not. Jim, this was my comparison. People used to ask me to describe Jim Cornette. And I used to say that Paul Heyman and Jim Cornette, they're one and the same. Paul Heyman is just a sophisticated Jim Cornette. Jim Cornette is just a hillbilly version of Paul Heyman. Both brilliant, both great at what they do. One's from New York, one's from Kentucky. But I think that what it boils down to with the KD, JC, just conflict was it was personal, and it was stemming from Kevin could come across as very demeaning and mean-spirited in that, that Southern hick shit. Oh, that wrestling. All Kevin's ever known is WWF.
Right.
He's never been experienced anything else. And anything else that he has been experienced to or exposed to was usually tarnished by Vince's opinion before ever seeing it or experiencing it.
Sure.
That goddamn Southern wrestling. Tennessee wrestling.
So he's jaded there.
Sure.
But it was, that's what it was, man. It just was silly.
Let's talk about silly. There's some fun stories. Let's get on something a little more lighthearted, something a little funnier. 2 quick stories I'd like for you to help us share. This is not in my notes anywhere, but I know you've told me these before. Jim Ross tells a story of Cornette being stopped at the border.
Oh my God.
You've told me a story about the way Cornette handles his room and hotel rooms with the wait staff and the maid services. And then finally, I know there was an incident, or I believe there was an incident, where you guys were shooting something during a hardcore match, or it was a backstage vignette or skit, and it involved Cornette's car.
Oh.
So catch us up on those, and we'll start with the last one first. Cornette's car. What happened?
Atlantic City, New Jersey. We were shooting television and we were live. They pre-taped a fight between the Boricuas and the Nation of Domination.
So 1997.
Okay. And they were in the parking lot where all the talent and everybody, the staff parked out by the television trucks. And there was a spot where the Godfather, at the time, took a bump on a car. And when he took a bump on the car, he rolled. And when he rolled onto the back window of the car. And just his weight, I mean, God, he's 320 pounds, but it was the right place, right time, right inertia, whatever. The back window just shattered and popped and exploded. Well, everybody thinks that, oh, hey, it was a gimmick car and they planned on busting out the back window. No, it was a complete accident. It happened in the midst of this fight. He just took a bump. He thought he was going to kind of bump onto the car, but he rolled. And when he rolled onto the back window and it exploded. So everybody, after they finished it all up and everybody's standing around like, oh my God, we got to find out whose car that is. Whose car is that? Well, it's Connecticut plates or whatever plates there were on it. And they put 2 and 2 together. It's Jim Cornette's car. Well, Barry Windham I don't know if Barry was the agent. I think Barry was working at the time, but Barry had a little something to do with this. And everybody's like, oh my God, wait till Cornette sees this. He's going to fucking explode. And Barry says, well, why does he have to see it now? What if he didn't get to see it till it was live? And we get him up at Gorilla. And it's like, hey, man, you got to see this fight. This fight was incredible. Wait till you see it. So we are live, and Cornette is at the gorilla position right next to me. And everybody's talking up this fight. Oh, my God, this thing is great. And they get to the car spot, and he's like, oh, my God, this fight is great. This is amazing. Son of a bitch. Oh, God damn. When they hit the windshield. Father, that's fucking great. This fight. Hey, what? That's my goddamn car! That's my goddamn car, Hey, that's my goddamn car! And he gets up.
Not a rental.
No, it's his personal fucking car. And he takes off to the back. And as he takes off to the back, he gets back there and he sees that his car, the back window, is shattered. He's so fucking mad. Now, he's not mad per se at the back window being busted out. He's mad that he had to watch it live and that nobody told him. So he goes to get into the trunk. And as he goes to get into the trunk,
You're saying open the trunk. You don't mean he's climbing in his own trunk.
Well, yeah, get into it. Open the trunk. Well, they know what I'm fucking talking about.
Somebody's going to fucking tweet us if I don't clarify.
Okay. So he goes in, and of course, because everybody has a baseball bat in their trunk.
And everybody has a spare handcuff key.
Of course. So Cornette takes a baseball bat out because he's ready to air out the rest of his goddamn car. Because I guess that's what you do when the back window gets popped out of your car. You bash out the rest of your windows. And he starts taking a baseball bat to his car, bashing in the trunk, and going around and hitting his own car, his own vehicle, with a baseball bat. The Hebners come running out, and they're afraid that he's going to just start taking the baseball bat and attacking people, and they're trying to calm him down, and he can't get calmed down, and finally they get him to put the bat up, and Jimmy goes back into the building to get his bag, and he's out of there, and in between, Cornette says it was a janitor, but it was actually the manager of the building, and his son tried to stop Cornette for an autograph. Oh, hey, Jim Cornette, hey, can I get your autograph? Fuck you motherfucker, I'll kill you and your goddamn snot-nosed little motherfucking son, and fuck you, and fuck goddamn New Jersey, and fuck Atlantic City, and fuck it. A fuck you fest. Gets his bag, throws it in his car, and peels out of the parking lot. He's gone. This is before the age of cell phones, too. And even if they had cell phones, Cornette wouldn't have had one at that time. He leaves. He goes home. We don't hear from him for days. I call him, leave a message on his machine, doesn't call back. Vince calls him, leaves messages on his machine. He don't call back. Finally, about the third day, Jim Ross calls him. Corny, what we got to do, bud? It was an accident. And finally, Jim talks to JR. And we agree, it's like, well, man, we'll take care of it. It was an accident. So we agreed to do his front and back window, because his front window was cracked and all this other shit. But I didn't get my goddamn trunk fixed because fucking I wanted a reminder of that goddamn night and the fucking bullshit. So he basically could have got a new car if he wanted it. But he wanted a reminder of that fucking night, so he left the bashed-in trunk. But the funniest part of all, to me, was when he finally talks to me. He says, you know what the worst part was? On the way home, I hadn't eaten all goddamn day. And so I pull into a fucking rest area because I got to get gas. And I'm starving. I want to go and get one of the goddamn Roy Rogers, the fucking roast beef sandwiches, get some extra goddamn mayo, some fucking horsey sauce, and some goddamn onions, put on my goddamn roast beef sandwich. But I couldn't leave my goddamn car because the fucking back window's bashed in. So I said, well, fuck, I'll just lock all my shit up in the goddamn trunk. But my trunk wouldn't lock because I bashed in the trunk with a baseball bat. So I couldn't even go in the goddamn Roy Rogers and get my goddamn roast beef because I couldn't leave my goddamn car in a goddamn Yankee motherfucking goddamn parking lot, motherfuckers. Fuck. And I'm laughing. And he's getting mad. The more I laugh, the madder he gets. But that was the funniest part to me, was the fact that he decided to get a goddamn roast beef sandwich. And there are no goddamn drive-thrus that are open in the middle of the fucking night. Goddamn Yankeeville motherfuckers.
So while we're talking about Cornette and cars, there's a story where Cornette is traveling north and gets stopped at the Canadian border.
Well, okay. There was that one, but also the famous one was Jim and JR traveling to Vancouver, and they fly across country. Well, as we've discussed, Jim is terrified of the death tube, and goddamn, I gotta walk the fucking gangplank and then get in a goddamn death tube to fucking go hundreds of fucking miles, and I hate fucking flying. So he would Xanax himself up to just be a piece of Jell-O on the plane. He would time it so that he knew when to take his Xanax, so that he wasn't really conscious during the takeoff, and he would just come to right at the end, right about the time it was to land. He knew how many he had to take for however long the flight was. Well, on this one trip, he's going across country with JR, and he didn't misjudge, but he took the Xanax, And the flight, he fell asleep, passed out on the plane. Well, the fucking plane's delayed like 2.5 hours at the gate. So Corny's and he gets up in the air. Well, he wakes up early. There's still like 3.5 hours left in his fucking flight. And his Xanax worn off, and he doesn't have any more to take. And they hit turbulence. And he's got JR sitting next to him. He's like, goddamn, JR, talk to me. Just talk to me. Fucking, oh my God, I'm freaking out. Just talk to me. JR tells a story where, goddamn, man, Corny's telling me, sing to me. Sing to me. Corny says he just wanted him to talk to him. But when they get to the Canadian border, they landed in Seattle or wherever they landed, and then they had to drive and they had to go across the Canadian border. And these motherfuckers are picking like every other car to search. And they pick Corny's car. So they ask them to get out and they go through their bags, and Cornette just goes, you goddamn Dudley Do-Right looking motherfucker, why you go through my shit? I don't want you touching my shit, motherfucker. God damn it, you motherfucking Canadians, goddamn cocksucking bastards. And he wonders why he was detained at the fucking border. Just saying. So that was the story. He mistimed his Xanax and woke up in the middle of the flight and came to, and it was a horrifying ordeal. What was the other one? There were 3.
Cornette and his situation or his policy and procedures with the hotel rooms.
Oh,
and the maid staff.
Oh my God. Well, first thing Corny would do anyway, he likes staying at goddamn Red Roof Inn so I could pull my fucking car up right to the goddamn door, get my shit out, put my shit in, have my car right there, and I fucking walk through a goddamn hallway in one of those fucking hotels, see people, fuck that. Turn the goddamn air conditioner on to freezing, freeze my goddamn room out. But if Cornette were staying in a hotel for like 2, 3, 4, 5 days, he wouldn't get maid service. You know why? I don't want anybody touching my shit. Oh, go through your shit. I don't want them touching my shit, motherfuckers. So he would have fucking 4 or 5 days, goddamn pizza boxes and fucking Wendy's wrappers and goddamn dirty sheets and filthy fucking towels and everything else, and not let a maid come in and clean his fucking room. Can you imagine what that thing looked like after 5 days? What it smelled like.
So he doesn't want people to see him carrying his stuff in, and he doesn't want the staff to mess with his stuff.
They touch your shit. I don't want them going through my shit. Same.
What kind of shit was he worried about them going through?
I don't know, but here's the counter to that. Paul Heyman. Exactly the same thing, sir. You cannot trust the help in the hotels. I will not allow them in my room. I keep the do not disturb. Do not come into my room. Do not attempt to change my sheets or vacuum my floor or take my dirty dishes out. I will air dry, whore. I need not your clean towels.
I was not ready for that.
That is what a blow dryer is for. Honey, get my back.
All right, folks, I can't wait to tell you about my wife's new obsession. It's Lumen. Lumen is the world's first handheld metabolic coach. It's a device that measures your metabolism through your breath. And on the app, you know if you're burning fat or carbs. Then it gives you tailored guidance to improve your nutrition, your workouts, your sleep, and even your stress management. All you got to do is breathe into Lumen first thing in the morning, and you'll know what's going on with your metabolism. Meaning, are you burning mostly fats or carbs? And then Lumen gives you a personalized nutrition plan based on that day's immediate measurements. Real time, folks. You just breathe into a Lumen, and then it gives you the information you need. You do this before or after your workouts and your meals, so you know exactly what's going on with your body in real time. And here's why your metabolic health matters. Think of your metabolism as like your body's engine. It's how your body turns the food you eat into the fuel that keeps you going. And because your metabolism is at the center of everything your body does, Optimal metabolic health translates to a whole bunch of benefits, including easier weight management, improved energy levels, better fitness results, better sleep. Lumen gives you recommendations to improve your metabolic health with each breath. And my wife uses this pre and post workout. She wants to make sure that she's got the best possible fuel for the best possible performance and recovery. And I know you're going to love it too. Megan has actually seen a doctor friend of hers lose over 45 pounds using a Lumen. And we've even heard of friends of ours who were doing 18-hour fasts that once they started using a Lumen, they realized they needed to cut that fast off before hour 12 because hours 13 on in were actually undoing the great they had done. Everybody is different and everyone's metabolism is different. This gives you unique insights at a level that my wife never thought was possible. Think of this as like a cheat code. So if you want to take the next step in improving your health, go right now to lumen.me/wrestle to get 15% off your Lumen. That's lumen.me/wrestle for 15% off your purchase. Thank you, Lumen, for sponsoring today's episode.
Catch me up about Cornette in traffic. I feel like Cornette sitting in traffic or Cornette riding with Vince McMahon, but you've shared your fair share of stories of riding with Vince. Did Cornette ever have to ride with Vince, and what would that be like?
Oh Lord. What happened? We started, I think, in Cleveland, or we took a flight to Cleveland, catching a flight, and in the middle of the flight, we're all sitting in first class. I'm sitting next to Vince. Cornette and Jim Ross were there. Lisa Wolf was on the flight. I forget whoever the hell else was on the flight. But I'm sitting on the window. Vince is in the aisle. And we hit weather. Something happens that we are not allowed to land where we were going. The weather's too bad. We can't get there. So they circle. They decide to reroute us to Albany. And they're circling Albany. Well, Vince has decided to take a power nap. So he's out. He doesn't know any of this shit's going on. He wakes up and he's hungry. Now, because the flight was originally only scheduled to be like an hour and a half or 2 hours or whatever it was, all they had was a little snack which consisted of a muffin and a banana. That was the snack food in first class. So Vince wakes up, he hits the flight attendant call button, and flight attendant comes back and says, "You have any food?" And she just comes and hands him this basket of a banana and a muffin.
Like, this is it?
Well, yes, sir. And he looks at his watch. Goddamn, what's going on? And he rings the flight attendant, and she just blows right by. She doesn't stop. So he's looking around, rings the flight attendant button again. She comes back, "Yes, sir." This is what are we doing here? So we were supposed to land like 30, 45 minutes ago. What's going on? And she just walks away, doesn't answer. I'm sitting right next to him. I witnessed the whole damn thing. And he's looking at me going, "What the hell's going on?" I said, "I don't know. They said they had something going on in the weather and that we were circling Albany."
Why the fuck are we circling Albany?
"I don't know." So he rings the flight attendant button again. And he says, "What's going on?" She just ignores us, doesn't answer. So he gets up and goes up and asks to speak to the captain. "I'd like to know what the hell's going on." Well, man, it fucking turns into this whole big ordeal. The captain comes back. "Yes, sir." He says, "Yeah, could you tell me what's going on here?" I've tried to ask this young lady a couple of times. She has no answer for me. And the guy explains, "Hey, we got weather. We're circling right now. When we get clearance to land, we're going to land in Albany, but we can't go. I forget what our destination was. So when we'll land, it'll be good." And that's it. I mean, that was the extent of the communication. Well, man, they call the fucking feds on us, on an unruly passenger. Now, if it had been United, they'd beaten the fuck out of him and drug him off the plane and probably thrown him off the off the fucking flight. But then again, it was different time, different place. But when we land, man, the federal marshals are all standing there, and Vince gets off and gets on his phone, and we're trying to find a car company so that we can drive to the next place. And the feds are all surrounding him, and they question us about all this bullshit about, sir, you threatened a flight attendant, you threatened the captain. And I'm listening to this going, man, he didn't threaten anybody. He asked a question. Why are we circling? Why haven't we landed yet? That's it. He was asleep when the announcement was made. And they fucking make a report, write all this bullshit up. So now we're late getting where we got to go. Weather's bad, and Vince is going to drive. And it's Vince, me, Cornette, and Jim Ross. And Vince is in a hurry. And as I told the story about him going about 140 miles an hour in the pouring rain, that's exactly what he's doing here. And I remember Jim Ross made the comment afterwards, that last time I ride with you, old man, goddamn, I got kids, and I'd like to see them. I'd like to see them again. I can't travel like this. And Cornette said, goddamn motherfucker, I'll never fucking travel with you again. I'll fucking die before I fucking get in a car with you behind the wheel ever again. And that was the last time that Cornette ever fucking rode with Vince driving. He was absolutely scared. If he thought that flying in a goddamn death tube was bad, being in a car with Vince McMahon behind the wheel in weather late somewhere is even worse.
Well, Jim was he's a pretty brave driver himself, though. Didn't you tell me there were a few times where you guys would have your plane delayed because of weather, and Jim would beat you to the town driving?
That bastard one time, as he stated, he goes, goddamn, I had to walk the fucking gangplank onto the goddamn death tube, motherfucker. He gets on the plane, and it's one of those small jets with one seat on one side on the left side and two on the other.
Yeah.
And he walks on. We're all already on the plane. And Corny walks on, looks, goes back, tries to sit down, but can't sit down. And he's cussing the whole way and goes, God damn, I'm not going to die on this fucking death tube. I'm out of here. And bolts, gets off the plane, and we're all sitting on the plane waiting for the son of a bitch to come back. He don't come back. And it's another situation where the weather was bad and so on and so forth. And we got delayed. We get off. And again, Jimmy didn't have a cell phone. We didn't have cell phones then. Jimmy's got a cell phone now. And you still can't reach on his cell phone. He's the only guy I know that actually answers his phone at home. But Cornette gets off the plane, rents a car, and drove 200 and some odd miles to the town and beat us there. He gets in at 1 o'clock in the morning. We don't get in until 4:30 in the morning.
Well,
and he gets there. He goes in and checks in and says, "Yeah, I'd like to leave a message for Bruce Prichard." Because Mr. Prichard hadn't checked in yet. Well, how about Jim Ross? Mr. Ross hasn't checked in yet. Vince McMahon, they're not here yet, sir. Beat us by 3.5 hours. And that motherfucker drove 200 miles, and we flew.
Well, time is flying in this episode. Let's get going. 1997 is where we last talked about, chronological things here. 97 at the end, man. It is a different era in professional wrestling. After the Montreal screw job, you want to give me real quick Cornette's take on the screw job?
Yeah, Cornette was 100% on Vince's side. Fuck him, goddamn.
All right.
Just take that fucking title off the motherfucker. That's what I do.
He knew about it beforehand and he voted for it?
He didn't know about it beforehand, but he did make the suggestion ahead of time that just fuck him.
Okay.
Take title off of him.
So not too long after this is when Vince says, we're going to stop insulting your intelligence. And he tries something that is pretty revolutionary at the time. It's the State of Wrestling. It's December 29th and it's 1997. And Cornette starts to do a series of shoot vignettes where he is, he's starting it up. And he would start saying something like, I'm Jim Cornette and that's my opinion. And he would have really long rants about Hulk Hogan and Eric Bischoff and WCW and the NWO and what they were presenting versus what the WWF was presenting. Whose idea was this? How much of this was approved ahead of time? Was Jim excited to do it or not so much? He had finished his managerial duties kind of in 1996. So by 97, he's pretty much just doing commentary and creative stuff, but this is a featured spot that's definitely going to get everybody talking. All the dirt sheets, all the websites. It will be the talk of the business for a few weeks here. Whose idea was it? Why did it go away? Give me something.
Did they even have websites then?
Yeah.
97?
Yeah.
The fuck out of here. You know, we had computers then.
You still don't. You're not sure how to listen to this show.
True that. It was Vince McMahon's idea, and it simply came from the rantings of Jim Cornette on a daily basis. Bitching about WCW and bitching about Nitro and what they were doing. So Vince said, goddamn, let's put that on the air. Cornette wrote him and essentially spoke his mind, but it was the Jim Cornette rants that he ranted every week about WCW and Bischoff and the NWO.
And why did it go away?
I just kind of ran its course. Enough was enough. Didn't feel it was really going anywhere. So as quickly as it appeared, it went away.
Let's zoom over to 1998. This is something that we've got a lot of requests for. It's the NWA Invasion, and it's loosely based on the old Crockett Promotions territory. There's a stable formed inside of the WWF with Jeff Jarrett, Barry Windham, and the Rock and Roll Express. And later in the year, Cornette would manage both Dan Severn and the Midnight Express when he steps back into managing. Eventually, as we said, he does some color commentary, Sunday Night Heat, and then just disappears from TV for a while before showing up a few years later, which we'll circle back to. But in regards to the NWA Invasion, Meltzer wrote, on the episode of Raw is War that was shown on January 5th, 1998, Jim Cornette brought NWA promoters / officials Howard Brody and Dennis Coralluzzo to Raw and made a match between Jeff Jarrett and Barry Windham with the NWA North American Heavyweight Championship on the line. With the assistance of Jim Cornette and his tennis racket, Jeff Jarrett pinned Barry Windham in less than 4 minutes to win the title. Immediately after winning, Stone Cold Steve Austin, the most popular WWE superstar at the time, hit the ring to deliver a Stone Cold Stunner on Jarrett and then mock his strut. This move essentially killed the NWA angle before it even started. I can't understand why the WWE would make the NWA look so weak instantly, but having the apparent face of the NWA be fed to Austin. The Bleacher Report website would report, the year was 1998 and WCW was killing the WWF in the Monday Night Wars. They struck gold with the NWO takeover, and this left the WWF reeling. Enter the NWA, the National Wrestling Alliance. McMahon was desperate, though, and brought in Dennis Coralluzzo, the head of the NWA. Dennis, along with Jim Cornette, an NWA mainstay, brought the NWA titles with them, and that's where the angle was set to fail. Only the most hardcore wrestling fans knew about the long and fabled history of the NWA, leaving the casual wrestling fan of the day in the dark. Who cared about the NWA North American Heavyweight Championship? It was a title my grandpa probably knew and followed, but anything to gain ratings will do. Jeff Jarrett, a career mid-carder, defeated Blackjack Wyndham to win the NWA North American title after Cornette interfered on his behalf. Shortly thereafter, they were joined by the Rock and Roll Express, and the NWA stable was formed. The NWA World Tag Team Championship was awarded to the Rock and Roll Express by Jim Cornette. And then, as we know, the NWA champion Dan Severn made his debut, and the stable slowly died off as Wyndham would leave for WCW. Severn would turn his attention to a singles run, and that would leave only Cornette and the new Midnight Express, a team he said he hated working with, which was, do you remember?
Bombastic Bart and Beautiful Bob.
So catch me up on this NWA Invasion. How did this come about? Whose idea was it? Tell me about the title belt, Dennis Coralluzzo, the Austin Stunner. Lots of stuff going on here with this NWA Invasion angle.
I want to say this was about the time that, Dennis Coralluzzo, who was a promoter out of New Jersey, a good friend of Cornette's, Paul Lee had done the swerve on the NWA title and made his own ECW title and threw the NWA title in the trash and lied to Dennis Coralluzzo. In Corny's mind, it was a way to bring Dennis Coralluzzo whole, make him whole, I guess. And I'm paraphrasing here and I'm putting words in his mouth. But it was, God, the NWA was just a dead brand. It meant nothing. It meant less than nothing. It's three letters that, to me, meant something back in the day, but in 1997 meant less than nothing. It had been 20 years since the NWA had been relevant. So to try and capture anything there, it just wasn't. But, they tried something different and tried to bring these guys in and maybe see if something catches on. Do another brand, add another championship. I hated it because it was just more belts, making it more confusing.
Quick correction. It was Bombastic Bob and Bodacious Bart.
Bodacious Bart, sorry.
With a name like Bodacious, who would ever imagine it wouldn't catch on?
Yeah, no shit.
All right, one last one. We got to talk about our friends at Amazing Kind before we get out of here. These folks are the specialists when it comes to plant-based pain relief balms, creams, and gels for your muscles and joints, and all the infused oils for your mood support and sleep. But the AmazingKind.com, man, he's one of us. One of us. This fella used to work in the wrestling business. He was a producer and editor for WWE, working on their commercials and their marketing. But then he started a family business called The Amazing Kind, and now they're specializing in helping you feel a little better. And because you're a wrestling fan, he's hooking you up. 20% off your entire order when you use our promo code WRESTLE. This is not a one-time promo code. If you've used it before, it'll work again. Go save yourself some cash and start feeling better. What you'll notice is that their products are all of the highest quality at theamazingkind.com. They're sourced from GMP certified manufacturers. They're tested for quality and purity. You're going to know exactly what it says on the label is exactly what you're getting. The Amazing Kind's the real deal, man. They got high quality topical balms, creams, and gels for those muscles. And we mentioned it earlier, the infused oils, the soft gels for mood support and sleep. And no matter what you're looking for, it's all natural. It's made from sun-grown hemp and then infused with nutrient-dense MCT oil. And when you're thinking about hurting, I want to tell you about the topicals. My wife has this whenever she feels like she's overworked some muscles. She's had through her fitness journey recently problems with a hip, problems with her back, problems with a shoulder. And guess what we reach for? The Amazing Kind. Once I help her rub some of that on, dude, she's good to go. She can be productive. And it can help you too if you've got sore muscles or stiff joints or backaches or arthritis. Or maybe you've just spent most of the day on your feet and you just need some everyday comfort. I also want to mention that the CBD products are just part of what they offer at the Amazing Kind. They've also got CBG to help you focus and CBN to help you sleep. The CBD infused oils and soft gels are going to help you support more relaxation and a sense of calm. It's going to help you start to fall asleep and stay asleep and have less nighttime awakenings. I really believe in all the CBN products that have these sedative effects and make it easier to fall asleep and get that higher quality sleep. But if you're just hurting, man, the CBD topicals, how simple is this? Where does it hurt? Rub it on. Ta-da! That's it. These anti-inflammatory properties really work. The localized pain relief, it really works. You need some muscle recovery. You got some chronic pain. I'm talking about bad stuff, bud, like fibromyalgia or neuropathy. This can help. It can even help with migraines. My right-hand lady at the office is a lady named Frances. She's been with me forever. But man, every now and again, she's just got to get in a dark room and just wait it out. That's been her experience with migraines. I told her about the amazingkind.com, and it really works. It'll really work for you too. Go take a look and see what they got. If you want to sleep better, if you need better rest, if you want to feel better, look no further than theamazingkind.com. That's THE, the amazing, KIND. KIND is what you're looking for. Theamazingkind.com. Use our promo code WRESTLE. You'll get 20% off. I've put everybody I know on this, my mother-in-law, my mom and dad, my wife, anybody in my life who has trouble sleeping or who has trouble with some pain. My mother-in-law has a bad back. When she was at our house a couple of months ago, I put her on The Amazing Kind. She texted me 2 weeks ago, what was that website where I could get some of that? The people in your life need to know about theamazingkind.com. Tell them to go. Tell them to use the promo code WRESTLE. Get 20% off. Everybody's going to feel a little better thanks to theamazingkind.com.
You want to mention anything about Austin just burying Jarrett right away?
Well, what the fuck else are you going to put Jarrett over Austin? No, it was never something that was. It was never something that was planned to be this huge. Oh my God! I tell you what. Let's bring in an outside brand, the NWA, and have them go over all the WWF guys. That doesn't make any sense.
So let's debut them and squash them.
Well, there was never any idea there or any plan to go beyond that one little thing. So yeah.
Okay. So there you go. Sometimes we think that there should be more to it than that, but nope. When you're just doing it by the seat of your pants, it's not always the case. So by July 98, this angle that so many of you wanted to hear all this juice about, there's just nothing happening there. We'll probably explore that in greater detail at some point, I'm sure. Let's zip around a little bit. Let's go to Ohio Valley Wrestling. July of 1999, we see Cornette move back to Louisville. He finally gets out of Connecticut. And the idea about starting OVW allegedly comes up in a conversation with Danny Davis. What if we started an official developmental territory? Is that how you remember that going down?
At this point in Cornette's life, to quote him, he was a raw nerve end ready to explode. So Cornette had taken a vacation or something, and he was down in Kentucky visiting his mom, ran into Danny Davis, who was doing OVW wrestling out of Louisville, Kentucky. And the idea came to him, yeah, what if it was a way out? It was a way for us to have a developmental area and using OVW as a place that we could send guys to learn and guys to grow. Danny Davis is a great trainer, and the school was tremendous, but it was also an opportunity for Cornette to get out of Stanford.
I want to talk about Ohio Valley Wrestling on a future episode in long form. We're going to go really long on this Cornette episode, so we're going to have to cut this a little short.
We're going to go. We already have.
But previously, as everybody knows, the WWF had tried some, developmental ties kind of loosely in Memphis, but that was what I would call low volume. And Ohio Valley is going to be a different approach. It's going to be like a real school. And they are going to have territories and talent exchanges. But a lot of this is going to be with Jim Ross helping sign new guys and sending them there to hone their craft on Cornette's watch. And there are lots of names who came through there that you'll recognize. The biggest of which are Brock Lesnar, John Cena, Randy Orton, Dave Bautista. The list goes on and on, but what a way to start with those four names, four of the biggest stars in the history of the business. There is a famous story, though, for whatever reason, it's kind of been swept under the rug as time's gone on, but Brock Lesnar was arrested while he was there for receiving steroids. Do you recall that?
I do.
Do you want to tell that story?
He was getting, I don't know if it was steroids or if it was growth or something like that. I really don't remember what it was, but he was receiving packages there in Louisville, and the feds had tracked it from wherever it was coming and went and met him when he accepted the package and brought him down and arrested him for a controlled substance. I think everything was dropped after that, and his lawyer there, and it turned out to be much ado about nothing.
It was a felony arrest and felony charge, but it was dismissed 4 months later. So nothing really came of it, which is why nobody really talks about it. But what everybody talks about of him down there is doing a shooting star press. Did you remember hearing that?
Oh, hell yeah. A big 300-pound bastard doing a shooting star press like it was nothing. It's absolutely amazing.
Also amazing is the time when he maybe pushed Cornette a little too far, and Cornette threatened to shoot a motherfucker. Can you tell us that story?
I don't remember. Cornette had to be crazy because Brock probably would have taken the gun and shoved it up his ass.
Now, of course, what everybody really wants to talk about is the firing of Jim Cornette in Ohio Valley Wrestling with the Boogeyman and Santino Marella. Do you remember this story?
I do remember this story.
Catch everybody up as to how this comes about. This is 2007. Do I have that right?
I guess sometime around there, but it was Boogeyman was coming into Ohio Valley Wrestling, and he was just starting out down in OVW, and Corny had him debuting on TV, but going out into the crowd and scaring everyone as the Boogeyman, I'm coming to get you. And Santino had just also started there in developmental, and he had come in, he had his daughter with him, and when Boogeyman came out with the gimmick and all this stuff, Santino laughed and, wasn't afraid of the Boogeyman. God forbid. And Cornette went off on him apparently in an after show tirade and, allegedly slapped him. I guess he slapped Santino, and Santino being Santino. Now, the funny part about it is Santino's a tough son of a bitch.
In real life.
Right.
Right.
I mean, yeah, he's a double tough motherfucker, man. And he just took it because, politically he didn't want to jeopardize any chances that he had of going to the show and being a part of the WWE. And to him, Cornette was, boss and executive and what have you. But when the issue got back to John Laurinaitis, I think that was the straw that broke the camel's back, and Johnny let him go. But I think, at that point, Corny was
He was ready. He was ready to go.
He was wound tighter than a $2 watch.
I'm sure if you haven't already, most people probably have, but you need to go find Jim Cornette telling this Boogeyman story. Man, nobody tells a story like Cornette. He was obviously there. Bruce wasn't. That Boogeyman story from Jim Cornette is outstanding. So eventually he sells the shares of his company, Ohio Valley Wrestling, back to its original owner, Danny Davis. And in February of 2008, the WWE would announce that they had ended their relationship with OVW as a developmental territory and would begin moving everything to Florida Championship Wrestling. That's the end of an era, don't you think? Ohio Valley was such a big part of WWE for so long.
Ohio Valley and that whole system there produced some of the greatest talent that is still performing in the WWE. And I always felt that was the heart and soul of that whole developmental program. And Danny Davis, Corny, and everybody involved in OVW, I thought, provided a service to the WWE that is yet to ever be matched with anyone. And I thought that was our best developmental territory and produced some of the greatest talent ever in the wrestling business, period.
It's worth mentioning that Cornette would work with TNA from 2006 to 2009. So I guess that Boogeyman shit happened before 07, and my guess was wrong. He would do some work with Ring of Honor from 2009 to 2012. In between there, he would do a little bit of work with OVW from 2010 to 2011. Catch me up real fast about any of your memories of Cornette discussing Ring of Honor with you. Do you remember having a conversation about that territory at all? I know you were never there, but he kind of has a somewhat famous, or infamous rather, cyber war or feud with the Young Bucks and Kevin Owens and all those guys.
No, it's funny. That's a period that Corny and I kind of, just kind of passed in the night because I never went there. I really don't know anybody from there, but Jim just was so disillusioned with the corporate muckety muck, if you will, and some of the young talent that relies heavily on, the spot monkeys, to steal a phrase from Broken Matt Hardy. And the guys, the younger talent that just had a different philosophy than what we grew up on. So I know he clashed heads with guys there, but no, I've never talked to him about it. And I that's just a period that I'm not really that familiar with.
Well, everybody is super familiar with all things Jim Cornette, but I want us to go out on a high point. And you've told me to ask you about this, but you didn't tell me exactly when. But you've told me there is a fun story about maybe the way Jim Cornette dresses and how Vince McMahon reacted to that once upon a time.
You know, Corny in general, quite the fashionista, I guess you could say. But Ric Flair got Corny started on Sansa belt pants because they stretch and you can take bumps in them and not have to worry about them splitting. But the best part was when we would dress at the house, and we would always be comfortable and usually just wear warm-ups. But Corny always had various Zubaz and always wore either, some kind of smart-ass saying on a T-shirt, and was particularly fond of South Park. I killed Kenny, my best friend Kenny Bolin growing up, motherfucker. One time me and Kenny climbed on the roof of a house and we decided to jump off, but then we didn't because Kenny's a chicken shit. And he steals meat from Kroger. But, he's just always dressed in these great T-shirts. And
How much shit are you going to be in with Jim Cornette after today's show?
I love Jim Cornette. God damn it. He's my buddy, and he always has been. And we've always shared different philosophies and different opinions on the business. But at the end of the day, we agree to disagree, and we share the same fundamentals. And I love Jim Cornette for being Jim. He loves me for being Bruce. We're different people. But the one thing we have in common is our love for the business and just wanting it to continue and grow and have whatever hand we can have in it. I was happy as shit that he went back to the Hall of Fame and that he had a part because, goddammit, there was only one guy to induct the Rock and Roll Express, and that was Jim Cornette. And I thought it was so appropriate to have Jim Cornette on a WWE stage in a Hall of Fame event. And I hope to see Jim Cornette in the Hall of Fame on the WWE stage within the next few years because he deserves it.
It's got to happen next year in New Orleans with the Midnight Express. Let's get Dennis Condrey
It would
up
be
there.
apropos, yeah.
Stan Lane. Let's get Bobby Eaton. Let's get the whole gang together.
Yeah, and people can say what they want about Jimmy and his different views, and Jimmy has his views, but at the same time, Jim's a professional. He's a human being. God, Eric Bischoff. I saw Eric Bischoff at WrestleCon, and he talked about how funny it was that he was backstage at a WWE event having a conversation with Jim Cornette.
In the same room with Vince McMahon and Triple H.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And Cornette to find, a common ground with Triple H and be able to talk to him and agree that what he's doing at NXT is a good thing and how great all of that is. And I just think it's tremendous that Corny, look, man, he can open up and he can be a human and he can enjoy the same shit everybody else does. And he's opinionating. He's an entertaining son of a bitch. He's my friend and I love him to death.
And he has always been super nice to me. And he's always
he hates you. No, he hates you.
I get that he tells you he hates me, but he's nice to me when you see him at an event, and he'll be nice to you if you see him at an event. And if you ever get an opportunity to meet Jim Cornette, man, your impressions of him as a fan that you've heard over the years are probably wrong. He could not be nicer, more engaging, funnier, wittier. He's everything you hoped he would be. We'll see you here next week on Something to Wrestle With.
Say my name, motherfucker!
Bruce Prichard.
Have I told you what I'm helping people with in my real life? Yeah, I'm helping them save money over at savewithconrad.com. If you haven't already, what are you waiting for? Go get yourself a quick quote. Interest rates have improved, and people are realizing, hey, now's a chance to save some cash. And I'm talking to you, if you're still on the fence about buying a house, we can get you out of that apartment, tell your landlord to kiss your grits, and get you into a brand new house. You can do that with 5% down, with 3.5% down, and yes, there are still no money down options available in 2024. SaveWithConrad.com is your first step. We're going to ask you, hey, where are you now and where would you like to be? And we're going to get you on a path to fit those short-term goals, but really meet the long-term goal that we all want. And that's to appreciate the American dream. The American dream isn't to give 29% of your gross monthly income every month until you die to some banker. No, you want to own that thing for real. Your own piece of land for you and your family, your legacy. And we want to help you get one for yourself at savewithconrad.com. You don't need perfect credit. You don't need money out of your pocket. And maybe you've already got a house, but it'd be nice if you could pay a little less. We're routinely finding a way to help our podcast listeners combine all of their debt, and I mean all of it. Credit cards, personal loans, even car payments. Get it into one low monthly payment. Not only is it a better interest rate, it's also a greater tax deduction, but maybe most importantly, a much cheaper payment. We're routinely helping our podcast listeners save $500, $600, $700, even $800 a month. But how much can you save? Find out right now at savewithconrad.com.
You guys, the housing market's really good right now, too, for you folks out there that are thinking of making a change in your overhead or your living conditions. Now's not a bad time to make that move. Nowhere better to do it than savewithconrad.com. He's going to save you money. He's going to be honest. And it's like dealing with a friend, an educated friend. And boy, there's a lot of uneducated and unfriendly people in that world. Conrad Thompson is not one of them.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, Jim. Check out our reviews online. You're going to see we've got more than 1,000 5-star reviews. Customer service is what it's all about. We want to be your mortgage advisor for life. So there's no application fee. There's no credit report fee. We just want to talk, man. Hey, tell us where you are and tell us where you want to be, and we'll try to help you get a plan to get there. We want to be your advocate, your humble advocate at savewithconrad.com.
Attaboy, Connie. Look at those cheeks, ladies. Look at those cheeks, ladies and gentlemen. My God.
How could you say no to that, right?
NMLS number 2129, Equal Housing Lender.
Savewithconrad.com.